Welcome back to another episode of the Backlog Breakdown, a video game podcast where we seek to encourage and to equip the church to engage this medium of video games wisely and responsibly. I'm your host, Josh, and with me today I have my co-host and brother in Christ, Nate.
That's
and
me.
Also, we
That's
also have someone who has graciously joined us, another brother in Christ, and I think I'm seeing double. Josh,
Yo,
welcome.
What's up?
Hey. Thanks for being here, man.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you are here to talk about some long gone days. It is your fault that we all played this game. I'm kidding.
Wow.
You picked it for us to play, and we
did
played
indeed.
through it, and now we're here to talk about it. So the time for playing is long gone, and now is the day for continuing on to discuss the game. Okay, I'm done. But
I just want to
welcome.
know when it's going to end. When will it ever end?
It's too long.
It's
too.
this has
long.
gone on.
These days are too long.
This is just entirely too much.
Yes, but Josh, it has been a little bit since you've been on the podcast. So,
Sir.
Yes,
Sir. No.
I hear some lip smacking over here. What's going on?
I think what you mean to say that it's been an undisclosed amount of time since we last spoke to our friend.
That's right. So how have you been, man?
Oh, doing well. Life is good.
Sweet.
Trying to stay cool with this hot weather here in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
The great state of Ohio. You know, sometimes I hear Ohio's name is smeared on this podcast, but as a resident Buckeye, I want to stand up for my state. So I had to insert that today.
Nice.
The dumpster fire of America.
I know all the kids are talking about Ohio and Skibbity and whatever. Riz.
Yes,
Skibbity
I mean
Riz.
the fact that the kids, the youngins, the one thing they got right is that Ohio is derogatory.
But it is for lovers, so all my emo
No, that's
fans
Virginia,
at
dude.
least understand that.
I think it's West Virginia, actually.
Well, there's a very popular emo song called "Ohio is for Lovers." But,
No, that's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie. Like what I will say, gracious Josh, is that you are among a handful of things from Ohio that I don't hate. But
Wow, it's strong praise there.
Dude.
Best thing I can say.
You flatter me.
I don't. And listen, I can't explain it. Like, if somebody were to be like, what is it rationally? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm from Western PA. Like, we just hate Ohio. Like, it's just, you know what I really think it is that the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bengals are all in the same conference.
Yes.
And so, like, for a while, there was just that season, those years where it was like, if, you know, it's like just that deep-seated rivalry, and it's
sure.
It's more Browns versus Steelers and Bengals versus Steelers, but like the Browns fans and Steelers fans, like, for years just hated each other. And so I just think it's like, I think it's just kind of like, oh, it's Ohio, just like, ugh.
Yeah.
But
I just always thought it was shaped really weird, you know, since it's round on the ends and high in the middle.
It's like a heart.
That's
It's the heart of it all. Yeah. Anyway, one good thing that took place in Ohio just last week that I want to talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
Is Origins. It's a board game convention, and I took my older 3 boys to it.
Yeah,
second year in a row, man, and we went for a day, and we had a blast. So in Columbus, Ohio, just a lot of companies are there. There's open gaming you can do. You can sign up for events. We bought a bunch of games, but had a lot of fun. So,
What'd you guys play?
That's awesome.
Yeah, we played a number of things. One game that really stood out is from Restoration Games. It's called Unmatched. And it's a 1v1 game, but it involves a lot of characters. Like, you could, we had a battle versus like Loki versus some kind of like mythical creature. I was the mythical creature. My 7-year-old was Loki, and he has a deck that's like custom to Loki, and it's unique to his character. And then I've got my own deck that does something different. And then my other 2 boys played right next to me, and they were playing. One was like Blackbeard the pirate, versus somebody else, some other character from fairy tales or whatever, and
Mhm.
unique decks and just battling it out. So we really enjoyed
Okay.
that. So
Nice. That's really cool. That's really cool.
I am intrigued. I mean, I like deck builders, but I just like I like card games, period.
yeah.
Um, dude, I have no idea what Unmatched is like, but if you like card-based board games, there is one that I always recommend called Smash Up.
Oh yeah.
Um, dude, Smash Up is iconic.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. So
I
you know what it is, so yeah.
I knew what it is. Actually, ironically, I just sold Smash Up Marvel. We just weren't playing it that much, but I definitely know what it is. It's a good game. So
I've never bought
Sweet.
any. I've never picked up any of the licensed Smash Up expansions,
okay.
but like I've got a bunch of because they do like the generic the generic like superheroes versus whatever. So
Robots or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, dude,
Cool.
Smash Up is great. Like we don't play it a ton because it's best. I've just my I don't want to get too far afield here, but it's best with like 4 people,
Mhm.
at least 4, and it's usually just me and Megan. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
but so
There you
we
go.
don't play it
So
as much.
Nate, you should hit the road to Ohio next year.
Actually, this makes it sound a little reasonable, but I'm just like maybe like, dude, that actually sounds kind of sick. like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a lot of fun.
but yeah, that would actually be like a really cool hangout. I'd much rather it not be in Ohio, but Columbus, oh, dude, I used to have to drive through and around Columbus, and I did not relish it for
Mm.
work. But it's not awful. It's not the worst traffic I've ever dealt with, but I just
You didn't
did not have a
relish
good
it.
time.
Did it put you in a pickle?
I do like Skyline chili, so I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that is
Is that
from
your bread
Ohio,
and
right?
butter?
It is. It's not my favorite, but it is. People love it around here. Well, some people love it or they hate it. So
Yeah.
I
What's the
like
deal
it
with
for
that?
chili dogs. It's got cocoa. Stop it, Joshua. We're trying to have a semi-serious conversation.
Uh,
I really like it for hot, like for chili dogs. I don't like it any other way.
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind it like on like sometimes there's this thing in Johnstown called the Sundowner. It's a cheeseburger with egg and chili on it. Um and we used to get Skyline to make those. But
nice.
yeah, that's Johnstown cuisine, people. It's a bad time.
Well, speaking of pickles, how have you been, Nate?
No, the only person speaking of pickles was you degenerate. Um Geez. Well, I'm actually, since you are talking about food,
Mm,
I'll just kind of like, today was a family day. I had the day off. I was telling
sweet.
our gracious Josh here about like we went to there's like an animal preserve kind of, it's petting
Ah,
zoo adjacent, like, but like they actually like they have some timber wolves, there's some brown
ooh,
bears, um,
whoa.
there's actually a white tiger at this enclosure. I mean, you can like walk around and it's kind of weird. But there's also like there's ducks and like chickens walking around and stuff like that. And it was really funny because like when we were walking by the wolf pen, and it's it's glassed up and stuff. And it was like it was a little sad because I looked at these animals and like Megan asked me at one point in time, she's like, She's like, "Do you think these animals were captured just to like live in captivity?" And I said, maybe. I said it could be sort of like rehabilitate, like it could be like one of these things that maybe these were like rescues, and they
Sure.
like because like people do privately collect animals. And I said, I don't know,
Mhm.
but it was really cool. Byron really liked seeing all the animals, but it was when we walked past the timber wolves, like Byron really liked that because like they kind of look like our dogs because we keep huskies. And he went woo woo woo, and I was like, yeah, let's don't try and pet that one, buddy. But it's like it's got like safety glass and all this other stuff. But
Sure.
but the chickens were walking around, and those wolves were at that, like they were at that glass, staring like very intently at the chickens, and I was like,
Nice.
They're like, I could go for a snack, and I thought that was really funny.
Mhm.
But yeah, we did that, and that's like an hour away from the house, and it was pretty cool. It's
Cool.
called Living Treasures. So
Hmm.
sort of past Somerset, Pennsylvania. But then on the way back, there's this dairy called Moo Echo Dairy, and
Okay.
it's like a little like Mennonite, old order Mennonite kind of deal, and like so it's got all sorts of like cool snacks. We bought some fresh ground peanut butter with
Okay.
chocolate in it, like um we got some like homemade gummies, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, like so we did that, and then they make sandwiches, and like they have like really nice cuts of meat, really nice, like
Yeah.
we got these, like it's a $7 sub, like 6-inch sub, and it
Okay.
it when I was done eating it, I was actually full. Like
Mm.
that's the amount of like meats and cheeses and veggies and condiments and toppings. So it's like, but it's a really cool thing. So we did that, and we came
Sweet.
home and kind of, and I did this thing. Okay, so and this is kind of like a weird story, but there's a customer on my route, and I'm not gonna talk about this too much, but he has been pretty much bedridden for many
Mm.
years, since before I took on the route. And by
Mm.
bedridden, I mean he kind of like lives in this recliner, and hasn't left the chair in years. And I stop in and talk with him most days for a few minutes. But anyways, he asked me one time. He said, "Do you know anybody that does like the laying on of hands for healing?" And I said, "Well, Joe," I said, "Shoot, maybe." Anyways, I said, I don't personally do that." I said, like I explained, I said, "I'm Presbyterian. You know, I'm not sure that the gifts really work that way. Like, I know that there's some people that like claim that they can put their hands on people and heal them and all." I said, God, in my opinion, God heals who he wants, when he wants, how he wants. And sometimes he doesn't want. Um, and I said, but I do have a friend who is much more charismatic in orientation, and he has done this stuff before. Anyways, um, I had he said, "Would you talk to him for me?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I had actually set up something to have him out there tonight to do that for my friend, for my customer. And uh there was a scheduling conflict, so I ended up just going out and hanging out with him a little bit on my own. But I did pray for him, but it was like just one of those things where it's like it's kind of like my heart broke a little bit, because it's like this is a man who has been, yeah. Anyways,
Hmm.
so I did that today too, and that was it was neat. Spent like half hour, 45 minutes just kind of jawing, and yeah, at the same time, it's, yeah. Anyways, so I did that. So that's what I did. That's what I've been up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Nice. That's cool.
So
Yeah. Well, I have been at the church is part of the EFCA, Evangelical Free Church of America, and we had our national conference this week for the past 3 days, and it was just up the road in West Des Moines, and so that's where I have been for the past few days. And I'll tell you, conferences like this, I don't get super jazzed about, just because I don't like sitting all day. It wears on me. And especially when it's like, oh, I could just watch some of these guys talk on YouTube. I don't have to be there in person. I say that because I was very wrong. That was kind of my mindset going into it, and I know it's not the best. It's not the best mindset. Like, it was. I was actually took away a bunch of stuff. The kind of breakout sessions and stuff were particularly good, just to give me some things to think about, and things to think about, and how to implement in our own church context and things like that. So, and it was really good just to be with a bunch of other pastors from around the country. Got to see an old pastor that I served under, a previous lead pastor back from Texas, which was really cool. And he's on the board of the EFCA national board of directors. So he's really involved in the denomination itself. So, anyways, being at that all week, it was actually really cool and gave some stuff. Both me and my lead pastor went and gave us some stuff to think about, and things will be kicking around. So that was super cool. I was telling you guys before we started recording, at one of the breakouts, I made friends with a guy, Pastor Ken. It's actually Kenichi. He was here from an EV-free church in Japan, right outside of Osaka. So that was really cool to meet someone who's, come halfway across the country to participate in this, which, I'm surprised by, because I just drove 25 minutes
Wow.
to be there.
How convenient.
Yeah, right, exactly. I didn't say that to him, but I just thought that was super cool. You turn and talking about how your church is going, and oh, lo and behold, this guy's here with a couple other people from Japan to
Well,
attend the conference. So
maybe
that's pretty
EFCA 2026 will be in Japan.
I mean, hey, I will not complain if that's the case. They only do it every 2 years, though, so it would have to be in 27.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'd say highlight, but okay, I'll get to that in just a second. I texted you, Nate, when it happened. The first breakout that I went to was hosted. It was on a book that's come out called "Scrolling Ourselves to Death." It was hosted by Brett McCracken. If you've heard who he is, he wrote The Wisdom Pyramid. We've talked about it on the podcast before. So that was kind of cool. Okay. Initially seeing that, it's like, oh, wow, that's cool. I want to go check it out. And then I had to check myself, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to get all like Christian celebrity on this, like, oh, I know this guy. I've read one of this guy's books. I want to go to his breakout. It's like, I had a moment of just like, come on, don't be that way. Like, it's
be
cool
a
to be
fanboy.
here. Right. Exactly. But turns out, like, both me and the lead pastor that I was with went to that breakout, and he gave a lot of good stuff of just kind of analyzing the culture, analyzing how we all use our phones for things, and how the church can be a place that, like, a lot of the time you hear, okay, so how do you integrate the culture and the technology into these things? But a lot of this talk, I'd say 75% of it is, here's kind of the downsides of this culture that we're living in, where people aren't paying attention, and you're disembodied from a lot of people you talk to. How can the church actually show a better way and provide, like, hey, when you're here, we slow down. Like, time isn't moving as quick. Like, you don't have to be like, set your phone aside and talk to real people and actually provide community and things like that. So he gave a lot of kind of practical tips like that to have us thinking through. And in a time where, not to spill too many beans, I don't know, beans, tea, milk, not to spill the milk, I don't know. But we've been kicking through just some more liturgical elements to be used in our church as well, thinking through how to do that, root ourselves more in some of the historic things within Christianity. So anyways, all these things it's like they play off of each other. So bunch of cool stuff there. So had a good time at the conference. I'm rambling, so we should get off that, except to say that it was a fun conference.
I got a question for you. Did you get his autograph, though?
I did not. I did not speak to the man afterwards. Yeah. We were a little bit late, and so we literally sat on the floor in the back of the room, because in the chapel that it was at, there weren't any other seats. So, but anyways, I could have gone up and talked to him, but I don't know what I would have said. Like, hey, I've read your book.
Thanks.
Like,
yeah.
Come on the Backlog Breakdown, baby.
Right, exactly.
It's like,
come on. Which, funny enough, in Scrolling Ourselves to Death, one of the contributors was Patrick Miller, who has been on this podcast before. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
I probably need to touch base with him. Just
That's cool.
It's been a
Anyways,
while.
you know what though, and we all kind of like glossed over the like sort of walked right past it. But Father's Day happened not too long
It
ago.
did. That's
Yeah.
true. It true.
And so yeah. Happy belated Father's Day. This is actually like my favorite new shirt.
Nice.
And it's a picture, like Megan got this for me, and it's a picture of me holding Byron,
Oh,
and
cool.
then she sent it and they put it on the shirt, but it's like,
That's sweet.
yeah. So
That's
it's like my new
awesome.
favorite shirt. I was really sad because I was eating something and I spilled a little something on it, and it
Got on there. Was it
got on
spaghetti
there, and I
sauce?
treated it, and you can't really see it, but I know it's
Okay.
there. It's like
You
It's
know.
it's
tainted.
the gravy stain
Yeah.
conundrum. Like nobody else can really see it unless they're like looking hard for it.
Yep.
But I know it's there, and it makes me
Yep.
sad.
Yeah. My wife got me, and I say my wife, she ordered it, but my kids actually pitched in, is what she said. They got me a real leather guitar strap
Oh,
they got it off Etsy. And she said that one of the guitar players at our church has a nice guitar strap as well. And she said that inspired her to get it for me. But she said, this is something that I know that you would never spend money on, but that you'd enjoy. And I was like, dang it, you're so right. Like, yeah. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool. She also got me a couple other things, which is pretty awesome. But
yeah.
anyways,
Gracious Josh,
Father's Day.
did your family spoil you, or at
Oh,
least appreciate
yeah,
you?
immensely. Yeah, my wife had the boys set up a little scavenger hunt around the house. So I would
Oh,
go to different rooms where I spend time, and there'd be like a little treat there or whatever. But then also part of the gift was just one of my boys gave me a gift that was like, you can buy whatever game you want at the board game convention Origins that we went to, but we have to approve of it. So it's like, okay, this sounds good. So before I bought that game at the convention, we all circled up, and I was like, boys, what game do you want to get? And we all agreed on this one game, so we ended up getting it. So
Okay,
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
that's very
awesome.
cool.
Sweet.
Nice. And just like
Well,
a pre shout out to all the dads who listen.
yeah,
You know,
that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. And you know what? We've already shared some of the experiences that we've had over the last times since we've been on the podcast. I was going to say 2 weeks, but it's been
it's
longer than that, Josh.
it's fair. It
since
is
you've graced us.
well,
with
and
your
it's also fair
presence.
to say that like you were probably teeing up for a really nice segue, like going from
Mhm.
McCracken, talking about the new book, and saying like, speaking of, but I hijacked it because I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to like shout out the dads.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And share your experience of Father's Day. But we have a few more experiences to share with some media that we've been into lately.
We hit record and let it flow, trading stories like Pokemon. Laughing loud till the mics might break. In this world we're making no mistakes. As we share, level it up. Life's an adventure we can't get enough. From Meridian to college, that's where we're
This ain't it, bro. Ain't it?
There we go. All right. So, experience share. We're going to share just a few experiences with some highlights in some other forms of media and recreation and things, entertainment that we have enjoyed lately. So Josh, if you would grace us with some experiences that you'd like to share, what you got?
yeah. I'll talk about one book that um,
Okay.
I've used over the years and recently has kind of been impactful again for me. It's a book called One to One Bible Reading. It's a small little book by
Okay.
David Helm. And in that book, it introduces a way of reading the Bible called coma. It won't put you in a coma, but context, observation, meaning, application. So I had
Yeah.
the chance to teach a 12-week course at my church that ended just a little while ago on a kind of basic hermeneutics, Bible tools, how to study your Bible. And so I used this book and other resources like that, taught coma to the students in the class. And then actually our church just had a Bible study boot camp for the men this past Saturday.
Okay.
And again, just kind of getting some tools out there. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. If people don't know about that book, it's really helpful, both giving you sets of questions for reading the Bible in any genre of literature in the Bible, which is really
Mm-hmm.
helpful. But also, it really emphasizes like reading with someone, like how to read the Bible with someone. And that's been something I've been able to do over the last, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess, with somebody at work. We get together and we read at lunch. once a week, and 30 minutes, not a lot of time, but it's been so fruitful to just read the Bible together. So, and I commend that resource, and it's been something that's been helpful for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I really like that. Like, that reminds me of like it was sort of a study technique, and the one that we used, it was called SOAP,
Mhm.
Scripture, Observation, Application, and then Prayer,
Mhm.
in response. And so, but yeah, I like that. I actually just ordered a copy of that, and so like, I think those tools, like anytime you can kind of give somebody something like easy to latch
Yeah,
onto so that they can actually dig into scripture a little bit, like you have to be careful. Like there has to be like, because I think we do, when I started like doing this, there's a way to recontextualize these passages that is not helpful or wise. Um, I remember talking to a friend, and it was we were reading through one of the gospel accounts when like the centurion's faithfulness, like Jesus gets surprised. He's like, look, like in all of Israel, like this man believes, and yet, and the observation that this person took was like, I can surprise God. And I was like, no. Like, no. That's a
that's
bad
good.
one. Like, um but yeah, I think like those tools, like anytime you can really sort of like, again, like sort of really get into and think about something, and it's helpful to sort of, again, sort of make it like bite-sized, and yeah, so
Yeah.
that's cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nate, what do you have to commend to us, or what experiences do you have to share?
Just there's a new season of Haunted Cosmos. I'm a patron, so I do get early access, but new season of Haunted Cosmos is coming out. I like that show. Um and this is like, I'm gonna just sort of throw it out there, like, I know that sometimes the material that show covers can be a little scary, so I do want to like, if you're a little more sensitive to those things, like, it's probably avoid it. But something that I have taken sort of like great encouragement from is that, like, yes, those things are scary. Like, I think what they're talking about sometimes like points to supernatural realities that we don't always think about, and that can be a little frightening, to think about, like the enemy, and like we are a people at war, and not, but spiritually, like supernaturally, and um but like also like just this idea that Jesus, the King of all creation, is also like got it firmly in hand. That, and I think like it has been something. So for me, this is like, again, I get it. For some people, it's just like it's not their bag. But I really,
Sure.
yeah, new season of Haunted Cosmos, always like that.
Yeah.
More spooky stuff for me to go like, ooh, yeah, ooh. uh, but in addition to that, there's a book, and I've just started it, so I don't have tons of thoughts on it, but it is called The Lord of Psalm 23. It's written by a guy named David Gibson. I'm actually listening to it on
Mhm.
Audible. And David Gibson is Sinclair Ferguson's pastor.
Oh, wow. I didn't
So
realize that.
Sinclair writes the foreword, and it doesn't look like it's super long, but yeah, it came to me highly recommended, and so I'm like just throwing it out there and saying, nah, I'm checking it out. And I think, Sinclair Ferguson is like one of those guys that, like, for the most part, it's like, yeah, pretty just, and yeah, anything he recommends is like worth worth kind of checking out. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a
What
fairly.
in this book, Nate? Does it just kind of walk through Psalm 23 and then kind of apply it, or how does it work?
I think it's. I mean, I just started it.
Yeah.
So it would just be better, I think, if I just read the description. So give me a second here, and I will. Don't you start playing, you. Don't do it. Okay. Title details. Is an expository study of Psalm 23 that reveals the beauty and deep theological meaning behind a familiar part of Scripture. Psalm 23 is one of the most recognizable passages in the whole Bible. Though relatively short, this poetic description of God's love epitomizes Christ's goodness and provision as he leads his children. Even lifelong Christians will find fresh encouragement by closely studying these familiar words. David Gibson walks through each verse in Psalm 23, thoroughly examining its three depictions of the believer's union with Christ as sheep and shepherd, traveler and companion, and guest and host. Gibson provides the canonical context for the psalm's beautiful imagery, inspiring praise and wonder as listeners reflect on the loving shepherd who meets every need. So that's the
Nice.
that's the thing. Like, when I say I just started, I mean I listened to like half of the first chapter today.
Yep.
Like,
Cool.
so
Nice.
but
Sounds good.
yeah, I'm not super into it, so I'm sure it's going to be good. And
Yeah.
I think, it's like one of those things, like anytime like we can we have the opportunity to really get like hip deep in scripture, that's always a good thing. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
but yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, and Psalm 23 is very popular, but it does also hold a special place in my heart personally. It during the time after I had lost my job in Texas, and we were trying to figure out what was going on next. We were listening to different sermons. Anyways, in the span of like 6 months, I heard like 4 different sermons on Psalm 23. So I think God was like really speaking that psalm into me and my wife's life during that time. Because yeah, it's we were not church hopping, but when we found ourselves in different places, I went to Chicago for graduation, and so in the church that we visited there, Psalm 23. When we first the first Sunday after we were checking out this church that we're at now, but after they had contacted me, pastor preached on Psalm 23. We go to service and in Austin at our church, Psalm 23. Like it was I was going to say weird, but it was just God kind of speaking that in. So I have a soft spot for that psalm as well. So good stuff, man. Okay, so you talked about why is it the Haunted Cosmos podcast and the supernatural and things like that. I read through a book, and I've been on a bit of a C.S. Lewis kick here lately, but in also a fiction kick. I read through a book called Till We Have Faces. Now, I had tried to read this book or listen to it years and years and years ago. Everything I remembered about it, I was totally wrong in my memory. I don't know what I was thinking. So it was like reading the book fresh. So I had forgotten everything about it. And so Till We Have Faces, it's a retelling of a Greek myth. It is the final work of fiction by C.S. Lewis. It was a flop when it came out, but he considered it his best work of fiction. After finishing the book a couple days ago, I understand why he says that, because the book is far more literarily complex than anything else that I've read from Lewis. I was talking to someone just earlier today, is that things like it's most similar to the third book in the space trilogy. I would say it has a lot similar shades to That Hideous Strength. Yep.
Was going to say, while Lewis thinks that Till We Have Faces is his best work, I would disagree with him. And like, now he wrote it, so he can have his favorite, but I actually think That Hideous Strength is better.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I mean, like, I like Till We Have Faces, and it's like probably one of, like, it's probably top 3 Lewis for me.
Wow.
But I think That Hideous Strength is better personally. So
it and yeah, that one has some complex things going on that makes you kind of like, what is and I say, okay, so a lot of fiction that I think of from Lewis, even The Great Divorce that I just read, which is funny because some of the themes from The Great Divorce show up in Till We Have Faces as well, some of the main themes. A lot of Lewis's fiction is not like, it is very good and entertaining. You think of something like Narnia, it's entertaining, but there's also stuff going on. Like it also teaches you about the truths of scripture and things like that. So I really like it for that, but it's much more kind of on the surface. You don't have to dig too deep to understand what is going on. Whereas Till We Have Faces, just finished it 2 days ago. It's one of those books that you have to sit back and really think about and dig into to uncover some of the themes that are going on. Because if you go to the end and you're like, wait, what just happened? Or you'll have that moment of, huh, like what exactly was this about? What is this saying? What actually was going on here? And as you dig deeper and deeper, it's like, oh wow, okay, this was much richer than I expected at the time. And not to say that it's not entertaining. I actually did enjoy just the story, the plot itself. But it at the end of the book, it kind of recontextualizes a lot of what happened earlier in the book, and yeah, it's pretty deep.
And just to it is it is a retelling of a myth. It's the Cupid and
Psyche.
Eros and Psyche
Mhm.
myth, and he's reinterpreting and retelling.
Yeah.
So
the reason I said Haunted Cosmos is because it does deal with the supernatural, and the main character kind of wrestles with this idea of the gods and what it means. And anyways, I don't want to give anything away because it felt like it was all fresh and new to me when I read through it. But
it is pretty excellent.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that Hideous Strength, and the reason the reason I would sort of rank that Hideous Strength over Till We Have Faces, is that I think what the things that Hideous Strength has to say, I think are better and more helpful.
Okay.
Like I don't think that Till We Have Faces is bad. There's some weird kind of like mystical nonsense I think that Lewis kind of plays around with a little too much until We Have Faces. But again, I think I think it's an excellent book. I just think like it's like if it's one of those things where if somebody was like, hey, like what 3 books should I read by C.S. Lewis? Like it'd be that Hideous Strength, Till We Have Faces, and probably The Abolition of Man, because I still I think that's like just one of my favorite. It's like it's kind of like it's hefty, it's quick, but it's also like it's hefty, but it's not too long, but it's also like it kind of packs a punch. Anyways, but yeah.
That's interesting. We won't stay here very long, but I would have a very different list if someone's like, "Hey, what should I read by Lewis?" I would go to the ones that are much easier reading first.
Yeah, I just think like I like the essays in his other fiction. It's like I like those things, but it's just like like I want to give you the best.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to ease you into it. Like
Yeah.
I'm like no, like just like like
Cool.
this is him on display. Like this is him sort of like just firing on every cylinder. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
cool. Well, that's Till We Have Faces. Highly recommended, at least for me. The other thing that I just want to mention, and it's just because of today, something that I would commend to anyone who is listening is that right now, and I believe it's ongoing. So hopefully I'm not eating my words as you're listening to this. But right now you can get a really nice Bible, an ESV Bible from Truth for Life in their store. They have an ESV Bible that is top grain leather. It's a thin line, so it's like easy enough to carry around. Large print, I believe is what I can't remember what it's called. But it's a pretty large print, thin line, top grain leather for $35 right now. On Crossway, who makes the Bible, it's like $200.
Oh.
But when you go to Truth for Life, they sell it at cost for them for $35. So we have ordered, as a church, we've ordered a handful of these, and we've given some of them out. I did not realize until I was talking to my pastor earlier today. He was like, "Yeah, they're $35 right now." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna get one for myself," because these are like it feels really nice too.
Yeah, I went and looked it up on the Truth for Life webpage, It's in their storefront. It's the ESV Large Print Bible. Yeah, this high quality, top grading brown leather English Standard Version ESV Bible presents scripture in easy to read 10.5 point text. It is a thin line Bible, only slightly more than an inch thick, making it lightweight to carry and comfortable to read from.
Yeah, I think it's like 150 on Amazon right now, something like that. Like that's the standard price for it, but it is 35 through truthforlife.org.
Dude,
So
that's a nice Bible. Like, and it's leather. It's actual
right,
leather.
right, yeah, it's gonna last. It's gonna last, and it feels good in the hand. So, anyways, I would commend that as well
That's
to
a handsome-
anyone listening.
Handsome book.
Yes. But you know what, guys? We've been talking for a while, but we are a video game podcast. And so what games have you been playing lately? Josh, what games have you been playing?
Well, besides our main topic, which we will get to in a little while,
Mhm.
I've got two I'll throw out there. I bring the sports ball to this podcast. I feel
Yes, that's
sometimes.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So I got another sports ball one for you. Football Manager 2024. I've been playing around with that in the background, and I love these kind of games. You get to manage a soccer team or football team, depending on where you're
That's
from.
right.
And
Football.
so I in my career, I'm a couple years in right now. I started off with the Columbus Crew, of course, because it was right up the road from me. But now I just got hired onto a French team, top league in France, and yeah, it's a bit of a challenge now. So I just love these games, managing my rosters, trying to find prospects. Players have attitudes sometimes. You're like, you know what, you're out of here. I'm done with you. Yeah, it's a great game. And then the second thing I've been playing, it's kind of gotten a resurgence lately, and so I've kind of jumped on the bandwagon and enjoying it when I can. It's Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think with the Andor series, the last season coming out, and it was a fantastic show, by the way. I think people just jumped on and wanted more Star Wars, and so this game, the numbers are crazy right now. And also, it was on a great sale too on Steam, and I just love this game. I mean, I don't play a ton of multiplayer. I'm not really good at it, but this game, it feels like Star Wars when you're playing it. You're running through these battlefields, and there's lasers everywhere and lightsaber battles, and there's all these characters you can be and droids, and it's all this stuff. And yeah, I just love. I could play a match in 20 minutes and then just hop off and I'm done. I feel satisfied when I play, and so yeah, I've really been enjoying that lately.
That's awesome. And that's the modern one, right? It's
Yeah.
come out within the past few years.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been out. It's been out for a while, but
okay. Right, there's I don't know if it's been remastered, but the original Battlefront 2 was really popular.
Yes, this is the
I
newer
played a ton
one.
of that. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Nice graphics.
Nice.
Yeah.
How would where are you playing Football Manager, and how would you? Because I was just looking at that and I was like, I do like sports games, but I don't want to do like a sports sim like FIFA and Madden. Like those don't appeal to me, but like the manager, like the Football Manager, that actually feels more like a kind of like, well, it's a management style game, and I'm actually like, oh, that would be kind of fun. Like,
yeah,
it kind of sounds like Ted Lasso, the video game. But
yeah, and I think that would be delightful.
Yeah. This is actually my wheelhouse. I've written for a website called GM Games. You can check them out, and they do reviews of these kind of games, these kind of text management simulation sports games. I've been playing them for years, and Football Manager and Out of the Park Baseball are the premier ones out there.
Okay.
There's other ones for different sports. Tennis Managers out there. There's football ones, but those are the two premier ones. And yeah, I play it on my PC. I'm sure it's probably on other platforms. I mean, it's best with the mouse, just because there's a lot of clicking. But what I like about it is I'm trying to get more into the tactics of football. I don't always understand like all the position titles and everything. Like I get the basic striker, defender, I get that, but all of the different positions you can pick. But what's great about this game is that you can just kind of have the game kind of pick a tactic for your team.
Yeah, I think that would be like the kind of like the fun of it is like, so like what happens if I like mess with this roster, or yeah, like That actually sounds really like there's a part of me. It's almost like sort of like you have like this ant colony, and it's like, what if I just like mess with this a little bit? Like, what happens? Um, well, okay, other Josh,
Yes.
what have you been playing? Yeah, like,
Yeah. So in terms of video games, obviously the one that we are here to talk about this evening is Long Gone Days, and so we will be talking about that in a little bit. Finish that one up. It's a podcast game, so no change to my score for that one because I picked it up this year. I played it this year. It's just for the podcast for this
Mhm.
episode in particular because I don't know that we explained this earlier, but Josh, you are a patron, and this is the game that you have chosen for us to play this year. So
yeah,
that's what I've been playing mostly. I have also been playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The DLC is Future Redeemed. And it is, I will say, well, I mean, okay. So I have not played very much DLC in my time. But this is an entire like side game, like 20-hour side game. New cast of characters. It's not the same. I'll say it's not the same characters as Xenoblade Chronicles 3. What they do with this DLC, I don't want to give any spoilers, but it ties all three of the Xenoblade Chronicles together very tightly. You see how interwoven they are, whereas you don't necessarily you don't need to see that to play through the main game of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Um, and it's very well done. The characters are really cool. You see some returning characters from the previous two games almost immediately, like within the first few hours. You get to control some characters that were in those
Hmm.
older games. So it is very, very good DLC. Probably the best DLC package that I've ever played. But again, that's not saying too much because I don't typically do that.
you don't
But
play tons, so
right. But it's also just nice to be back in that world. It feels very familiar after playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 3 last year. So I've got more thoughts on it, but the game is very spoilery. And the last thing I'll say is that because what it does is it ties the games together, is it is a very niche product in that it is for insane people like me who have actually played through all three of the like you know how when you make a movie, typically sequels don't do as well as the games before them, or excuse me, as the movies before
hmm
them, because people haven't watched the first one. So you're marketing to kind of a smaller pool, if that makes sense. And this game feels like it is right up my alley, especially because I love Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But it feels like who is the audience for this? It's me. It's me and like five other people, which is crazy. But I'll tell you, man, it's good stuff. So that's what
cool.
I've been playing is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. So no change to my score this time around, but
Okay,
there will be more conversation about that in the future.
yeah,
I
yeah.
will connect it to this game.
I was waiting for some terrible pun.
Yeah, actually, and that was a bad pun because Future Connected was the DLC of the first game, which I didn't play. I actually heard it wasn't that great. Future Redeemed is this DLC. Yeah. So I'll redeem that pun later in a future episode.
No, no, sir. Okay. Well,
What you been playing?
I'll just kind of get through what I've been playing here. I have played a little bit more Returnal. I did sort of. I got my Switch too, and so I have been just kind of. I haven't played. I dabbled. Like I turned a whole bunch of stuff on. You know,
Mhm.
like like I played some Mario Odyssey in the Switch too, and it
Nice.
looked super clean, super crispy. It was like super quick load up.
Mm.
Fired up some Breath of the Wild. That looked really good. Really kind of like again like really clean, really great load times. Fired up some Astral Chain. Played a little bit of that.
Okay.
Kind of got like I realized that it's like I probably just need to start over again because I was a couple hours into it but there's a lot in that game, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna start that one over. And but yeah, that even there, I mean, it just ran better. It like you know, I remember on the original Switch, it would get like a little framey, a little like
Yeah.
chunky, and it just like it's super clean. Like it just
Mm.
it's like no, like like we got this.
Mhm.
So that's
That's what I
like
wanted. Yes.
and I'm we're gonna save a lot of my Switch to like we're actually gonna do an episode. We're gonna try to get a couple other guys on to talk about the Switch 2. All I will say is that I am very pleased with it,
Mm.
like from stem to stern. Like I understand there like it's kind of like one of those things where it's like the way that I've heard it, that what I would say is that it solves problems that Nintendo created with
Okay.
the Switch, but I'm still here for it. And there are even things that I really like I'm actually kind of warming up to the virtual card shared library thing
Mm.
feature.
Okay.
Like it's nice because I have multiple Switches. Like Megan has my old OLED, and
Mhm.
that's the primary console. And the way that that used to work is that if it's not your primary console, then it has to do like an internet check to make sure that you can actually play those things.
Yeah.
Um, Now with those virtual cards, like so, and any of my digital library, I can just assign it to like if I install that virtual card onto my Switch, I have
Mhm.
access to it, and it doesn't have to do the internet check.
Yeah.
Um, and I like that. I think that's like actually like really pretty. I mean, it'd just be better if you just said, "Hey, you're signed in here. Have at it."
Sure.
Um, that would be much gooder in my opinion. But I do think that it's like the more I sort of like fool around with some of those features, the more I appreciate it. And again, it's like it's solving problems that Nintendo created,
Mhm.
but I'm like, I don't hate it. Anyways, um, so yeah, Returnal, Astrobot, Astral Chain, and Long Gone
Nice.
Days. And it's in addition to that. But like I beat it, but it was a podcast game, so yeah, no score. And my score is still at -4.
Mm.
So yeah, I haven't picked up anything recently. I haven't beaten anything recently. Um, so yeah, hopefully by the time by the next time we record, I will have an update. I've got some stuff where I'm just like need to get this stuff done. Anyways, all that being said, for anybody who's saying like, what's this -4? What's this beatdown you guys are talking about? It's a meta that we run all year long. The TLDR version of it is you buy games, you add to your score, you beat games, you take away. You want to get a low score. Yeah. You want to even go into the negatives. So it's like, yeah. If you're interested in checking that out, there's a lot more to it, but it's not like insane. We have rules pinned in our Discord server in the 2025 Backlog Beatdown channel, or you can just reach out to one of us and we will get you a copy of the aforementioned rules. That being said, you know, if there's something we'd like to just sort of throw out there for your consideration as well, is that like so many other podcasts out there, we do have a Patreon. And if you like what we're doing here, you've done the rating and the reviewing, you've done the sharing and the caring, and you're looking for a way to go a little bit above and beyond, you can choose to look at it as maybe like a tip jar, or you can look at it as maybe a way to partner with us as we, sort of move forward with whatever this is. Um, and we have a patron with us tonight, so he could tell you all the things that he gets, but I won't make him do that. But it's for as little as $1 a month. You get early and uncut access to each and every episode. You get a special role in the Discord, which means a little bit more access to me or Josh. You also get, extra access to us through the Patreon. Um, and in addition to that, you get the Bro Hang, which is an exclusive podcast for patrons only. It tends to be a lot more just sort of stream of consciousness. It's not always video game related. Sometimes it is. So yeah, yeah. It's just it's a mixed bag, and sometimes it's gonna be heavy. Sometimes it's just gonna be basically be the equivalent of like fart jokes or something. I don't know, for or jack wagons or jack wagons. In addition to all of that, each and every patron gets to pick a game or a topic for us to discuss. That's why gracious Josh is here tonight. And he picked the game, we played it, and now we're going to talk about it. But that being said, if you guys are at all interested in that, the link to that will be in our link tree, which will be in the show notes. So yeah, we'd love to have you to join us. That being said, lastly, but surely not leastly, we have friends that we've sort of partnered with in the Playwell Network. We love those guys, and we think you ought to check out some of their stuff. So here's a word from one of them.
Hey, Grandpa, I just can't wait to play GTA 5 online with my new PS5. Can you buy it for me for my birthday?
Well, when I was your age, I had all the time in the world for video games, but no money to buy new ones. That's how I was able to beat the classics, like The Legend of Zelda.
Well, that's great, Grandpa.
Nowadays, I have all the money I need for games. In fact, they've never been easier and cheaper to buy. But, son, your grandpa amassed an entire library of games that he's never played, and now that I'm old, I just don't have the time to play them all.
Okay, Grandpa, I think my squad's getting together, so I've got to
That's why I listen to the Backlog Breakdown, a podcast about becoming a wise steward of your time while also enjoying video games. Whether it's detailing the strengths and pitfalls of specific games or encouraging you to take stock of your buying habits, the Backlog Breakdown helps me to get the most out of the games that I play.
Christmas is still a few months away, so just forget that
They're also really good at being bad at brevity.
Did you forget to take your meds this morning?
And we're back. So tonight, folks, we're going to be talking about Long Gone Days. It was our buddy Josh's patron pick, and well, let's just open it up this way. Josh, why did you give us this game? Like, what was it? Like, why'd you pick this? Why'd you ask us to play it? And like, why are we talking about it tonight?
In other words, why did I inflict such punishment upon you? No, just kidding.
Possessed you.
Like, what's wrong with you?
So I don't know. It's kind of a weird story. Like a couple of years ago, there's a big bundle, and this game was part of it, and I've always wanted to play it.
Okay.
I don't play a lot of RPGs, but I was like, I'd like to play an RPG. I liked how it looked. And I know it had something to do with war, which I enjoy studying that or learning about that. And I thought that's an interesting mixture of RPG, war. I'm sure it's been done a lot, but and then I think somewhere along the line I realized it wasn't very long, and I said, okay, I think that mixture will be good. And then the patron pick, I was like, hey, maybe the guys would play with me, and we could talk about it. So I mean, not great reasons, but yeah, I wanted to play it.
But that's actually really unique. I appreciate knowing that. I didn't know why you'd picked it before. I thought maybe. See, I just assumed because all of the other patron picks that we've done, just about, I could be wrong, and feel free to, make fun of me if you think of one that I'm wrong on. But generally, they tend to be, I love this game. I want you guys to play it and talk about it. Whereas I like this angle of, I want to play through this game, and it would be fun to have some friends to talk with about it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's different.
Formula.
That is, yeah, I do like the change up there. Like this is probably why Josh, you might be one of my favorite guests. Like I like all my guests equally. Like I love all our guests equally, but secretly you might be my favorite.
Thanks.
No, but it is this like every time you're on the show, you kind of like bring this like just like not off brand, but just sort of like off of our beaten path energy. And I love that. Like, dude, like nobody's bringing like Football Manager 2024 or 25 to the table to talk about it. Like, and you're just like, hey, I have this. I think it might be like a cool conversation piece. I need a reason to play this. Let's go. And I dig that. I dig that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also appreciate that it's a shorter game. So
100%.
that's
Like,
pretty nice.
dude, if this thing had been like a 30-hour monstrosity, I'm like, I might have been like,
Yeah.
oh.
To be honest, yeah. Well, we'll talk about the game, but like, yeah, if this went 30 hours, I would be done. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it kind of like that shorter time frame definitely helps it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
sure.
So, alrighty. So I guess as far as like baggage or context, like none of us have any baggage with this game. I mean, well, you explained your baggage. It's like you got it. I'm gonna assume like a humble bundle or something like that.
Okay, well, and I gotta confess, it was in a big itch.io bundle. It was
Oh
like
yeah.
the
Okay.
racial equality one. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so which is, I want to support that, of course, but I think some of the things that bundle was supporting, maybe I wouldn't support as much. So anyway, I got a
Sure.
lot of games in that bundle, way too many to ever play in my life, but this was one of them,
Yep.
and I wanted to play it.
Sweet.
Okay.
Nice.
I mean, like, hey, I mean, like, I was like, I love the way you come at that. You're like, I got it in this bundle, and it's like, yes, some of it was good, but like, there's also things. It's like, dude, I mean, anytime I would buy a humble bundle, like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, some of the charities, like, unless it's just like very like I can't support this.
Yes.
There's some of them where I'm like, nah, like you're good. Nah, like, that's a side eye.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard that particularly about itch.io as well, is that most of what you get from those bundles is like stuff you'll never touch.
Yeah.
Most of it. But then there's a few that you will, and so that makes the, $3 or whatever it is worth it. $6, $10,
Yeah.
they're real cheap.
It
At
wasn't
least the
much.
ones
This
that
is
I've
what
heard of. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, since that's your history with the game, and like you said, Nate, we don't really have any back. I had never heard of this game until you brought it up, actually. I'd like to just, I know this is not great for the podcast, but at least read some Wikipedia on kind of the history of this game, or at least answer the question, what is a Long Gone Days? And according to Wikipedia, it's an RPG. It's for computer, Windows, Linux, stuff like that. Written, developed, and illustrated by Camilla Gormaz. It features a dystopian story in which a young soldier becomes disillusioned for the cause of an operation that he was a part of and deserts them to prevent an international war. So this game was kickstarted, or at least it went through Indiegogo. And because the developer also illustrated the game and wrote the game, you can I will say that it is an indie game to the core, and that you can tell as you play this game that this is a very small team that made the game. We'll talk about that more, but I will say, I mean, I think at least the illustrations are probably one of the highlights to me of the game. For the most part, there's it can be a little bit of a mixed bag at times, but I think that's also due to it feels like a very low budget game in a number of ways. But then what
Well,
was that?
it was initially, and just sort of like, it was initially an RPG Maker 2000
Yeah.
project, but then it did eventually move over to Unity as far as its engine goes. So it's like, that's why it kind of has the feel that it does.
No.
One fascinating tidbit. I listened to a podcast with the developers, and that Camilla lady, I think you mentioned, she talked on the podcast how she had the idea for this game when she was like 15, and it spurred her
Okay.
on to learn how to do game design because she wanted to see this story come to life. So like this is like been a lifelong ambition for her to create this game.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That
Cool.
is like, dude, that's actually really cool, because like, how many times, like, I mean, like, we're in the space and we kind of do like have this like question, like, oh, like, part of it is like, I think like part of it is like, I think everybody who plays video games secretly harbors the dream of like making a video game, and then but like to actually have that just be more than just, hey, kind of like, oh, I'd like to like to make a video game, kind of like, it's like, wouldn't it be cool? And it's like, it's something I think is so interesting too, is like, because Unity, RPG Maker, like this stuff is available. Like
Mhm.
you can download, like you can download Unreal for free. Like you can get like these tools for free, and it's just like, it's putting in the time. And so that's pretty cool. Like I always applaud that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that is Long Gone Days. What I mean, this portion, before we get to, spoilers, which will come down the road for anyone who wants to join us for that. We've got just kind of thoughts and analysis. We talked about kind of the conceit of this game. It follows a young soldier who defects from his platoon. We'll put it that way, and things just kind of seem to go downhill from there. Well, one of the things that I'd like to point out just about this game is that setting. Okay, is that it is dystopian, but it's also grounded in modern times,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like there's certainly dystopian elements, and you mentioned earlier that the developer wanted to make this game since she was 15, and that makes a lot of sense to me, because honestly it does. Overall story, this is my thoughts and analysis, is that it did feel kind of young adult fiction to me
Mhm.
for the most part. Something like oh my goodness, the Mockingjay, what were those
Hunger
books?
Games.
Hunger
yeah.
Games. Yeah. Something along those lines. It doesn't go that far into dystopian, like, oh, you're in a totally different like world setting. It does feel much more modern day. I was going to say America, but it doesn't take place in America. You're kind of hopping around Europe. But so it's more grounded in real life, but it does feel to me kind of that same young adult fiction is where it sits, which is unique to a lot of the other RPG games or games about war that I've played in the past.
I think kind of what you're saying without saying it, Josh, is that the writing is a little simplistic. It's a little tropey. It's it's not bad, but it's not
Right.
like great. And it does tend to be a little like sort of on the nose and kind of preachy. I mean, there's like I was sharing with you guys, like at one point in time, there's just like this kind of like, there's this line that the game sort of throws out there, and I think it's supposed to be kind of like, I don't know but it's like this, like, who would have thought giving the PMCs all sorts of money and power and influence would be a bad idea? And I'm like, wow, no. And it's kind of said like almost like earnestly, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, everybody would think that. Like everybody thinks that giving private military contractors too much money, power, and influence is a terrible idea. Um, like I don't know. I don't know a single person outside of maybe people who are PMCs, who would sign on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's interesting about this game is that, yeah, I think some of I agree with you on the writing. It can be a bit tropey or whatnot, but um, is that they're dealing with modern realities. And as I was playing the game, at least
Mhm.
early on, I was thinking, wait a minute, are they talking about Ukraine? Are they talking about Russia? What are they talking about? These, and they always, even in that interview I listened to, they weren't trying to picture any modern conflict necessarily, but they didn't
Yeah.
want to shy away from the modern context. And I think there's something that's brave about that, because it's like you could really offend different sides of people based on how you portray this. And they went after the
Mhm.
bad guy in the game is this PMC, and so, but there's they deal with different countries. You're in Russia, Poland, Germany, so yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's an interesting setting.
Yeah, you're right about that, Josh. I was a little nervous because at one point someone talks about one of these regimes in one of the countries. I believe it was in Russia. Maybe it was no, it was Germany. After you get to Germany, one of the characters starts talking about this regime that's rising up, and it specifically said like, it was a regime built on hatred. And I was like, "Oh, great! Is this a Trump analogy?" Because
Yeah.
that's what you hear.
Yeah.
But to its credit, I don't think it was like you said. I did not get
Yeah.
the impression after playing through that. Like there was just a part of me that like kind of tensed. But after finishing that area, I'm like, no. This was not like a thinly veiled, attack on Trump. No, it was just that it takes place in modern day, and so that's what it
Yeah.
goes for. Unfortunately, it does mean then that this hateful regime really just was a regime built on hatred of, people
Well,
that don't have anything to give to the rest of society in the monetary way.
I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things where, like, and again, it's the tropiness of it, right? And so
Mhm.
like even the bad guys are kind of like they're almost cartoonish, and
Yeah.
it's like it's this very kind of like like I am never like if somebody just wants to make their villain like evil, like I'm cool. Like yes, bad guys should be bad, like
Mhm.
and like but I also think like there's just like some nuance where it's like it does feel like a little on the nose. Like yeah, it's like the part you're talking about, Josh, is like yeah, I was like this is like kind of like maybe sort of like some backhanded criticism towards like Trump or any of these like populist leaders that have been because European countries have had like there have been populist resurgences
Mhm.
throughout Europe. So it's like and then there is this kind of like, of course, this group is like, oh yeah, they're all just a bunch of weird isolationist hate mongers, and it's like, oh well, there's a part of me that just kind of like rolls my eyes at that because it's like, oh, that's like, it's really easy to like be like, yeah, these people kind of suck,
Mhm.
like, but like the stuff behind some of that is always more complicated than just like, oh. I mean, like even sort of in looking at how things work now today, right? It's like so many people, like, part of, I don't like politics. I don't want to talk a little bit about it, but it's just this like, it's super reductive. And if you support Trump, it's like if you're anti-Trump and you're criticizing people who support Trump, it's because they're Nazis, and it's like, there's all this like sort of like you can just like heap all this stuff, and it's like, that's not even half of it for most people. That's not even like part of the conversation for most people. It's, there's a lot of other reasons that people would choose this
Mhm.
besides like,
Mhm.
oh, like I hate foreigners. Like,
Right.
do you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, but that's what it gets kind of reduced down. And like that, I always think like those criticisms, I'm always like a little critical of that because it's like, you're not interested in being fair. You're not interested in sort of like, having a conversation about it that like that might be an expression of it, but it's not like that's not the sum total of it, and that's maybe not even the bulk of it. And so like to like portray like the bad guys as like mustache twirling like sort of like hate mongering, foreigner hating, you know pig is, I just like I was like, I didn't hate it, but it's like you said, it wasn't like directed, like it didn't feel like a parody of any
Mhm.
world leader that I could think of. It was just sort of like, hey, here's an example of like a person who sucks that's sort of like chasing down power. And I think the thing is they dodge a lot of that too by just making it so that this whole, and we'll kind of give a little, but it's like the primary sort of antagonistic organization is the core, which again is this sort of like, it's this organization that exists outside of state boundaries. Like
Mhm.
they are underground. They literally, their chief facility is like underground, and it's a giant army that sort of just contracts out, and sort of like acts as like world police kind of thing. And so it's like that's like the boogeyman, right?
Mhm.
That's like the, and that's like, so at that point in time, you do manage to sidestep like getting too
Mhm.
close to reality, but at the same time, yeah.
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 One of the things
But
I liked about some of this modern context was actually the way that they used, because you're in different countries in the course of the game, they use different
Mhm.
languages. And when you
Yes.
enter a
yeah,
town, I don't think I've ever seen this in a game, at least games I play. When you enter a town, you can't understand what people are saying because now they're speaking in
Mhm.
Polish. You don't know Polish. I guess the core
yeah,
only speaks English. I don't know. Um, but you have to
yeah.
find a
I think
yeah.
that's the case. Yeah.
So you have to find a translator, someone to come help you, and then you can go back and talk to those people if you want to get more an idea of what they're saying.
Hmm.
And or if you want to read like newspaper clippings lying around, you need a translator to help you understand what the
Yeah.
local newspaper is saying. It's just kind of helped make the world a little bit more alive, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
No, that was definitely, I think, one of the I really actually like that touch. I was like, oh, that's actually, that felt like really kind of clever.
yeah,
Like I was like, oh yeah. Like until you get
Mhm.
the right people in your party to act as like a translator, like yeah, you're just kind of like, I don't, I'm it's like
Mhm.
I don't read Russian. I
right,
don't know what's going on here.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I especially felt that when you go to Poland because it's like not even like at least with German there are some words that you can kind if you sound them out they sound somewhat similar to English. Not that you can really tell what they're saying, but it's like okay, at least I understand the sounds. But when you have WCKYWERKZY, I'm just like I have no context for what this even sounds like.
Yeah,
So I have no clue in line, weird lines above
Or
letters
yeah,
and stuff like
using
that.
the Cyrillic alphabet,
No
I'm
clue.
like,
Yeah.
like yeah, I'm just like, good luck with that.
Hmm.
Like, um,
Yeah.
I it just and sort of it's like I actually really thought it was kind of cool though too that they just basically took a turn-based RPG and sort of used that as like, and they just kind of overlaid again and I would say like I would probably like typify this as like a near future dystopia. Like
Yeah.
the tech is like a little like it's all like tech that we're we probably could see within like 10-15 years
yeah,
a little more commonly. um like there's drones in it and stuff like that. And like even like yeah, so it's like the tech in the game is not, we actually have most of that tech now. It's just not super,
Mass produced.
yeah, it's not super prevalent. Um so yeah. um
I would
Okay,
say
so
that.
another thing that I just wanted. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh
Okay.
no, go touch.
One
So
of you
along with the
go.
language, yeah, one of the Joshes, we at least start talking. Along with the languages is, I think, one of the things I can, say that positively about just the overall game is that it does try to tackle this idea of war from a boots on the ground perspective, not as a soldier, but as the people in the areas in which the war
Yeah,
is ongoing or at least
Yeah.
adjacent to, in ways that I haven't necessarily seen. In some ways it does feel very familiar, but in other ways I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting when you're dealing with a lot of different people in a town and their reactions to what's going on. It doesn't go super deep with that premise, but you do get a few different perspectives of people, just being afraid and not knowing what to believe and things like that. That is interesting because you're usually playing as the soldier in
right,
these types of games.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like even sort of like the cast of characters that
Hmm.
you assemble are sort of like outside the norms of like a typical JRPG, like fantasy JRPG kind of like party. Like
Hmm.
these are all people who just sort of for the most part are sort of backed into the corner. And just sort of are trying to there's like a pretty fantastic premise here. We gotta, I think we're gonna have to like crack open spoilers to actually talk about, but
Okay.
But on that point,
But
Nate,
yeah.
I mean, there's one of the characters. There's 6 characters that you can play as, or mix into your party, or, of course, the game. But one of them, and I hope I'm not giving away too much here, he refuses to use a weapon.
He's a
And
pacifist, yeah.
yeah, and so he can boost your party or heal your party, but based on his
And he can
character,
use support items.
okay, he can use support items. But so it's just interesting, like you have these different characters. Um, yeah, I found the combat to be a bit of a mixed bag for me. I did enjoy the turn-based combat. They tried to have this system in the game where you could aim at different body parts of the
Yeah.
enemies. I I just shot for the head most of the time.
Yep.
And you miss, okay, but like this game, I don't find this game to be very hard. It was pretty
Right.
forgiving, especially if you have a lot of items to heal your people. So it was a nice idea. I don't think it was that well executed. But yeah,
Well, and the stats weren't like, it was like one of those things where, yeah, I think it's a neat idea, but
yeah,
the game didn't reflect, like, there's a depth there that the game actually didn't meet the criteria for.
right.
Where it's like, in theory, somebody else could take a system like that and actually really go a ways with it. But this game, it kind of like, it's like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you did this? But it's like, the reality is like, yeah, it's like almost like if you weren't doing headshots, you were just wasting time.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah, so some of the things about this, because it is your typical I was going to say JRPG, but turn-based RPG combat. But what they do in this game is that there is no gold or experience that you typically
Yeah.
get from a turn-based game. So, but you can get items. You choose you choose what items you want, or just replenishing your SP for your special attacks after each battle. However, the battles in this game are all scripted. So there is no going off the beaten path and, grinding or anything like that, which is interesting in that obviously it means that the developers, tailor all the enemies to where they know you're going to be as a party. But it does mean that it changes the way that you approach battles. I know for me, I was pretty stingy with my special attacks because I don't know, what battles are coming up. You don't have much. You don't have like healing spaces outside of your items and your special moves that you can do to heal. So it's a very different flavor knowing that you don't actually get that much from doing battles, and if you try and optimize for battles, it's really the boss battles that you're really saving everything for, because you're not thinking, because grunts like are not going to get you more experience and levels and stuff like that, so
No.
you kind of just deal with it as it comes. I did find towards the end of the game. Now, I don't know if we said this earlier or not, but this is a shorter game.
It's like 10 to
maybe
15
10
hours tops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so something that throws in the mix as well, along with not grinding, is that it limits how much they can build out these systems. I didn't realize until probably the last quarter of the game how powerful the buffs and debuffs and status effects are. They're really powerful in this game. So long as you are buffed, and if you blind the enemy, you're good. And you said this, Josh, that you found it to be fairly forgiving. I would say once you figure some of these things out, it's easy. If you don't figure these things out, you could be on your toes for a little, because there were a couple boss battles where
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through, but I also wasn't using a lot of items because I wasn't sure what I was going to get back, but overall I agree with you. It was forgiving, and verging into easy if you actually start using what's at your disposal. But because it's all scripted battles, which means there's not a lot of it, you're not necessarily encouraged to use your entire arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what the developers talked about, how they didn't want to have min-maxers. They wanted
Okay.
it to be more of a streamlined approach to the game, and for even for
Mhm.
combat. But that's the thing that kind of frustrated me, and maybe I didn't look hard enough. But like, I was trying to boost my characters, but I wasn't sure like how much boosting have I actually done, or how much have I, debilitated the enemy. I couldn't find the
Mhm.
numbers, and so I'm so used to games giving me numbers to see like this is where you're at, or and so that's
Yeah.
that. I wanted more quantifiable stats to really dig into, but there wasn't a lot in this game, which allows you to streamline it and keep moving. You don't have to worry about that. But it also it's like, well,
Mhm.
I want that, So
Well, and it's like that works into the calculus, like because it's like how much like when I'm doing the buffs,
mhm,
like how much extra damage does that? Like if it's only 25%,
right,
that's pretty like that's whatever, that's negligible. You can kind of like look right past it. But if it's 50 or 75 or 100%, and yeah, I couldn't tell you. I do think that the buffs probably like if I had to just do like sort of like rough guess, I'd say it was at least a 50 to 75% sort of increase to stat lines.
and and
Like
and that's the thing is like you're rough guessing it because the game doesn't tell you. Like
the game doesn't tell you.
you just
Yeah.
are guessing. You're like, well, I maybe I should boost right now. That sounds like a good thing to do, but
Oh,
like why?
or it's like, or I got debuffed by the enemy. Like,
Right,
so what, like, and it doesn't
Mhm.
even like, yeah, there was a lot of like weird, like non-communication there too. Even in
Yeah.
that, like, okay, so like I buffed, they debuffed me. Does that just take me back down to normal?
right.
Or does that knock me all the way down to, yeah, there was a lot of, yeah, that
And
it's like some of that, the information would have been a little bit more helpful.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And just to be clear, like in a typical JRPG, when you get moves like that, the buff moves, you would go out into the tree area where all the monsters are. You would fight a few battles, you would test it out, and then you would have a baseline. Then you'd go back into the town and you'd stay at the inn and refill your HP and
yeah.
MP. Because this game does not allow for any of that, doesn't it's all scripted battles, so you cannot go and test. You're kind of just left to, do you want to try and use some SP, some of your points that you're not going to get back unless you use items most of the time, in order to test this out, because you're not going to be able to replenish it unless you use
Yeah,
items.
but and I think that was more of a concern early on in the game, but I think
Yeah.
about the halfway point though, I just realized that like, oh, I'm pretty item rich.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it's like I just kind of I was like, well, we'll just just kind
Just
of
do it.
just just let him go hog wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the same. So
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't have any other things like any other like spoiler free context stuff to like talk about. It's like yeah, I think I've kind of I've spoken my piece in this
Mhm.
regard, but um so if you guys don't have anything else to sort of like, sort of bring to this, I think it probably is time to maybe just crack open the seal on spoilers here.
Spoilers. All right, the part of the episode where we spoil
I
everything.
kind of want that to just be like almost like akin to a Sega yell, but like someone going, spoilers.
Yeah, with the lisp too.
Yes,
Yeah,
I want the spoilers.
yeah,
well,
I like that. I like that. Almost like a what's his name, the comic book shop owner in The Simpsons, something like that.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
I like it.
Actually.
And instead, I went with the much more sophisticated 3-part harmony or 4-part harmony there. With
I
the
mean, don't get me
spoilers.
wrong. I like it too. It's very nice. I almost feel like I want a lot, like a little bit more sometimes I wish there was a little bit more neckbeard in that.
Yeah. Yes. A little more audible fedora
Yes,
in that
yes.
sound. Anyways, okay. So enough about that. We're talking spoilers for Long Gone Days. So this is not a very long game. And actually, you know what? We want to start out with that. Spoilers. What does the name of the game mean? Long
No
Gone
idea.
Days.
No,
Do they
zero.
ever even use that term throughout the game? Did you guys notice? They might have said something about it at the very end of the game.
Well, maybe if you got the good ending, I did not.
Mhm.
I don't think most of you got it either. Then you could like look back fondly upon those long gone days. But my ending was horrible, and you weren't looking back fondly on anything like that. So
No.
there was no
No.
reminiscing in this game, really. It wasn't. I don't understand the name. I don't know where the name comes
And
from, but yeah.
Because if that was the case, and yes, you're okay. So there's a good ending, there's a bad ending for this game. Okay, we all got the bad ending.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in just a second. But you're right.
Yeah.
But even if you got the good ending, then those long gone days would have been bad. Like, why
Right.
would you want to remember those? Like, it would be. I don't know. When I use that term, long gone days, I think fondly on the past. Right.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
long
It
gone
does
days
have
of
like
yore.
sort of it is like, it does feel like loaded in the sense that like that has like sort of a very, like a fond remembrance, kind of nostalgic kind of like subtext, where it's like,
Where
that phrasing is like, oh, those long gone days. Like it's like, I look back on this and I remember this like sort of like fondly, like I like yearningly, I kind of like look
Yeah.
back at these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas for any of these characters, the long gone days would have been like, man, glad we got through that, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, so that's just a funny anecdote. As I don't get the title because I was anticipating it, through the
Yeah.
whole game. Like, what is it? What is this actually a reference to? Because I don't get,
So
because especially for your main two characters, like they had a horrible childhood.
yeah. So let's just kind of like try and run through the story, like give a bit of a story brief, and then we can kind of maybe dig into some of the other stuff. So, and you guys feel free to stop me or fill in the gaps or whatever.
Good.
But basically, the game puts you in charge of it. It starts out and it kind of runs you through this, and it says like it tells you about this kid who was like grew up, and from birth he was basically trained as a child to
Mhm.
be a sniper.
Yep.
And the entirety, like all of his schooling, everything, it was like basically how to kill people. And you find out, fairly early on, that this kid, his name is Rourke, is part of the Corps, which is, it's a private military contractor. It's this sort of like this organization that exists outside of state boundaries. It has a underground facility, and it basically has a bunch of children soldiers, like as its
Mhm.
army, like. And more of it comes out, like there's a whole bunch of like really kind of like weird, nefarious shenanigans. Feels like too light of a word. There's just
Mhm.
some like really shady,
Human trafficking.
nasty. Yeah, there's human trafficking involved.
Mhm.
But anyways, so on his very first mission to the outside world, like, and the whole thing is like the children of the Corps, they are taught that their goal is to sort of bring peace to the world, and that they function as like peacekeepers. And so anyways, his first mission out there, like he's out there, he's kind of doing his job, and through course of events, like he's hunting down an enemy combatant. And when he actually makes eye contact with this, it's actually just a kid. Like it's a scared kid running for his life. And this sort of sets his path where he's like, what the heck is going on? Um, and at that point in time, he basically defects. He, through sort of like circumstance, drags a medic, his unit's combat medic. He drags him sort of like sort of along for the ride. Like it's one of those
Mhm.
things where it's like the medic has no intention, and then the further they get along, it's like, well, we're just stuck in this, and then it kind of comes full circle. Anyways, their mission is their was it it is Russia. They're in Russia, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kaliningrad or something, Kaliningrad or
Yep.
something like that. And they're supposedly sort of invading an enemy base, and then again, yeah, it turns out to be a bunch of non-hostiles, and it's a false flag operation. That this entire thing is meant to start a war between Russia and Poland. So Rourke, along with Adair, that's the medic's name. It's Adair. I've never seen
Mhm.
that name before. I don't. That feels like a made up name to me. Of course, I don't know. Could be just I don't know it. Like sometimes I'm sure some people would look at my son's name and say that's a made up name, and I'm like, well, no.
I mean, have you met a Rourke before?
What's that?
Have you met a Rourke before?
I mean, last name
Oh,
Rourke,
okay.
but never first name.
O'Rourke. That's what I think
Yeah.
of. But anyways, yeah.
But anyway, the short version is they flee. They end up fleeing from the core. They kind of get hunted down and they flee, and they end up in this town. And this town, they meet Ivan and Lynn,
Mhm.
who are the only other two English speakers. And again, that's sort of that translation thing where like everybody's speaking Russian. You have no idea what's going on as the player and as the characters in the game. You meet Lynn, you meet Ivan, and they speak English and they sort of like take you in. But it's like everybody's trying to escape this town. And so you're kind of waiting for this ferry to show back up so that you can sort of get on there and flee the town. Meanwhile, you kind of get roped into this, like you basically sort of join up to defend the town from the encroaching army, which all these people believe is the Polish army, but it's actually the core, again, sort of like, you know, starting a fight
Mhm.
to basically start a war. And so you guys fend, like Adair and Rourke fend that off. They make it to the next day, and of course, like, you know, it's all about the friends you make along the way, kind of thing. You know, it's not about the core combatants that you kill, it's about the enemies, or it's about the friends you make along the way. They survive that encounter and they flee with a lot of other people, and in this they get into this ferry and they cross over into Germany. While they're in Germany, they sort of run across what is her name? Her name was weird.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Atie, something like that.
Yeah.
Atiye. Yeah.
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 And she's a journalist, and they sort of get caught up in this conspiracy there, and that's where they find out like there's there's a German nationalist party that's very anti non-German, very corrupt, kind of, you know, has echoes of
Nazis.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you kind of come in, and that like Atiye and her partner Zoe, like, and yeah, I'm not even going to comment on that. Like, and it does seem that the creator, this what was her name again?
Camilla.
Camilla. I do not believe that she's American.
She's Chilean, I think.
Chilean. Okay, that checks. Like I was like, I don't think she's like from the US of A. But anyways, so you run into this Atiye, and she's a reporter. She speaks English, and you end up kind of getting swept up in this conspiracy. And then you find, oh, the core actually has ties to this political party and
Right.
to the organized crime syndicate that's sort of like running all the shots here. And then you find out about like this human trafficking thing, and actually Lynn has some experience, and she was rescued out of this. But like there's this crime family in here that has ties to this political party, and they're kidnapping young women off the streets, and then they're basically shipping them off to the core, so these women can just be like baby factories to produce more soldiers for the core. Anyways, you put a stop to all that. Like, you kind of like you go through, and it's so funny because it's just like, man, for a game that has as much like anti-war sentiment as this game has,
Mhm.
you resort to a lot of like killing people.
Mhm.
Like, it's like, because everything is guns, it's like
Mhm.
it's like you take your turn and you're shooting at different body parts, but it's like you are mowing people down. You're going like full murder hobo. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's not like, hey, sneak in and try to like not hurt people or anything. It's like, no, you just run into people. They're like, hey, stop trespassing, and you're like,
Mhm.
here's my gun. My gun says no.
Yeah. To be fair, often it is the people that you are coming across are very aggressive.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's rarely like, huh, who are you? And then you pull out guns and shoot them. It's more
no.
just like, you're not supposed to be here, so
So let's
they
shoot
pull
Here's
out
you.
my
the
gun.
Yeah.
Here's my gun. I'm going to
Right.
point at you, and then
Right.
your response is like, "Oh, here's my guns."
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. So we're doing this. It's all
let's take
guns.
turns and shoot at each other.
Yeah,
Um,
when I had my first combat, it was so jarring. I was like, wait a minute, we're point blank just shooting each other? Like, how long is this gonna last for?
And
You
it
know?
takes like 4 shots for you to die. 4 shots to the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
like
That's
even
true.
sort of that system. What would have been like a lot cooler is if like, hey, like agility affected like your dodge rate,
Yeah.
and so that like, and then like you take a headshot. Just again, this is like sort of the system. If you would have really fleshed this out and play with it, it's like the headshot. Like, you have a much higher percentage chance to miss, but if you do connect, it's like a guaranteed crit, like that kind of thing, where it's like,
Mhm.
just say like 80% of the time you're gonna whiff, but when you do connect, it's like boom, just like, that's it, done, dunzo kind of thing. Anyways, so you do all of this stuff. You sort of uncover all these mysteries. You at one point in time, Zoe gets kidnapped and you rescue her. Um, and again, you sort of, and that's when you pick up the sixth and final member of your party, and he's this guy who had worked for the crime family.
Mhm.
What's his name? I can't
Pascal.
remember.
Pascal.
Pascal. That's right. Like, that. Yeah. Anyways,
Cygnus.
Cygnus was his
I
like
don't know why
his
I
hacker.
remember this, but
I
yeah.
was like, yeah, man, that's like, Josh paid way more attention to this than I did.
This was deeply meaningful to Josh.
Yeah, it's really
because he
resonated
was
for-
because someone made fun of him for using that name, and I'm like, why?
but
He used a screen name, and like Cygnus is a cool screen name. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
why was he made fun of? I don't
dude,
get it.
I mean,
Oh,
Pascal.
because his real name is Pascal. Okay. Okay, he
kinda
has a
what-
real name. So I don't know. I didn't get the joke.
Well, and even like the crime boss, like, he just turned out to be like, I love how the portrayal of him is just like, he's just this like whiny snot-nosed kid that
Yeah.
like, he just like throws bodies at problems, and then when it's actually like, he's like, no, don't hurt me, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe that's maybe like a crime boss would kind of be that way at the same
Mhm.
time, but yeah. Anyways,
So I'd like to bring up something because we're talking about kind of how you deal with conflict in this game is you just pull out. I really like how you put that, Josh. You just point blank shoot at each other. That's how you deal with a lot of the conflict. But the
these people
other
are
side,
stormtroopers.
right. The other side of it, the way that you deal with conflict in this game is actually what I think of when I was saying that it feels kind of like a young adult novel. Is people will give speeches and that will change the character's heart of just like, oh, you know what? I didn't realize how much pain we were causing to other people. Like it felt as though just saying a few sentences very emotionally like would connect with people really quickly, where I was just like, that doesn't feel like real life. That feels like a like a young adult novel, like someone who has never actually wrestled with these concepts. It, it didn't feel like it was fleshed out.
Well, and even there too, though, it's like, okay, like, so it's like I present the moral dilemma, and then like the other person responds is like, oh, gee, I never thought of it that way. And it's like,
Mhm.
and it's like, well, no, like, or it's like, or I always knew it was bad, but I couldn't help myself, kind of thing. And it's like, nah, man, like the realistic sort of like way this is gonna go down is like, don't you realize you're hurting people? And some of these people are gonna go, I don't care. Like, I don't care.
Mhm.
Like, and it's like I'm a like there is like, how does this affect me? It doesn't affect me. And it's like the kind of, anyways, yeah. um
One of the things that I definitely agree with the sentiments that you guys have as well. I think one thing I did appreciate is, despite the amount of use of violence in the game, which I think actually counters the message that the game is trying to promote,
Mhm.
um, I do think that there's a fair bit of scenes among the friends of them dialoguing, of them staying up at night, when somebody can't sleep and so another friend
Yeah.
talks to them. The
mhm.
game kind of slows down at different points where you can do these side quests or you can talk to various people, and I felt
Yeah.
like that was kind of the heart of the game. The game was really trying to get to the idea that Rourke and Adair, they don't have family, and that these kind of interesting band of character is becoming their family. And he even, like, Rourke will use this in his diatribes against the bad guys, saying, I found my family, they love me, you just wanted to use me. And I thought the game did a decent job during those times where it slowed down and they talked, like trying to show how a family was starting to develop, a sense of belonging, a sense of, this is my people, this is my place, it's worth giving up all what the core could give me.
Mhm.
I'll take this. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like especially towards the end where it's like and I do want to circle back to that, because like, Rourke's basically saying like, my relationships with them aren't merely transactional.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
these are people that I have grown to care for, like, legitimately, not because of this weird, like, this is because like the whole thing with the core is like the father general, and that's like your brothers and sisters. And as a service member, like, I'm going to tell you like that the affection and the bond that I have for the men and women that I served with, that's a real thing. That's a deep
Yeah.
thing, but it's like like that comes through that's basically like deep-seated trauma bonding, and I think some of that is like, yeah, Adair and Rourke are experiencing that with their friends, this sort of group. Now, the thing is weird to me is like, it takes a course over basically this
Yeah.
whole game happens over the course of like a week.
Yeah, I know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the timetable is like super fast, and it's like, dude, I'm just saying, like, these people are still effectively strangers
Mhm.
like at this point in time. And there's like suspension of disbelief where you're just like, oh, whatever, just go with the
And they're
ride.
dealing with trauma. Like, it doesn't go that quickly. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, yeah.
Well,
It's
maybe that's why it's called Long Gone Days, because they're talking about all the long days that, I mean, the
Yeah.
week
No.
that they had
that whole
together.
week, that awful week. um
I th- I agree with you, Josh. I did like the moments when it slows down. I even liked kind of the side quests that you do where
yeah.
you're dealing
Yeah.
with people in the different towns. And it's interesting because honestly, you recommended this game, you asked us to play it, and I don't know where I got this from, but I thought that I had read that this was like a visual novel. And so I went in expecting a lot of that. So then when these, the sniper mechanics and then the RPG mechanics come in, I'm like, oh, okay, no, there is more like game to this game. It's not just a visual novel. But anyway, so I'm just saying I set my expectation that yeah, there's a lot of story in this.
Mhm.
And so like I was primed for it. It didn't feel boring to me at all. Like I agree with you. I think especially that was kind of um reaffirmed in that, okay, all the battles are pre-scripted. So I kind of preferred like the
Mhm.
moments that you have throughout the game, the story, the character interactions. I agree with you. There is, though, like you said, Nate, a certain suspension of disbelief, and I'm just now realizing it. Sorry for mentioning the game again, but I'm just now realizing it as during this recording of, I think this game and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 have some similar elements in that, okay, Rourke and Adair were child soldiers, and their reintroduction into society happens extremely fast in this game. And I was like, oh, like they would be dealing with so much trauma
Oh,
and not knowing how to
yeah.
reacclimate into society, that Xenoblade Chronicles 3, while it doesn't have that kind of like reorientation into society, because it's a totally different world, it actually deals with the deep-seated, just like the assumptions that you would have if you were a child soldier about the world and
Right.
other people, is much more, it's much more complex in that game. So that part of this game did feel very shallow, in that like the actual ramifications of being a child soldier would have been much heavier upon these
Yeah.
characters. However, what they did have in those character moments, I did appreciate. So I'm kind of two
Well,
minds, but I'm also
and
saying that I think those were some of the best parts of the game. So
I'm just gonna sort of come out and say like the entire premise, like in the like this is kind of like hard to parse,
mhm.
because like a child soldier's conscience is like they're basically brainwashed and complete. Like
Right,
Rourke
exactly.
is not going to be like, oh hey, like this is a human being. Like
Mhm.
he doesn't have that sort of
A
outside
context,
perspective on morality or context or anything like
right?
that. It's just like for him, and there's this sort of assumption about like human nature and everything else that the narrative kind of wants to insert there, but it's like that would require context that would require a background that Rourke doesn't have.
Right.
Period. Like if he literally, anyways, I'm not gonna get too into the weeds, but um, all that being said is like, so these guys get through Germany, they Scooby Doo the big bad boss, and and again, it's kind of like the villains, the antagonists here. They're just kind of like, what? It's like, okay, this is like cartoonish and kind of stupid, and but it's like, yeah, they deal with it, and they kind of they end up getting on this underground train and riding that to Poland, where everything is sort of like where things are really starting heating up, and that's actually the core has established a beachhead there. And so the whole purpose of this false flag sort of operation is that Poland is a country that has resisted sort of the overtures from the core. Like everybody
Mhm.
else is kind of like friendly with this organization. They have existing relationships with it, but Poland has just kind of like iced them out repeatedly. And so what this is meant to do is sort of incite a coup where the core can kind of come in, act as like the heroes, be the stabilizing force, and basically overthrow the Polish government. And so your six scrappy adventurers, they get on this underground train, and they high speed bullet train underground travel to Poland, and they get there, and thus begins their journey to sort of like finally end this. And it's kind of like one of these things where you basically you sort of you organize, and again, it's very quickly.
Mhm.
It's like
The,
we have to,
a public demonstration of what they know about, oh, this is a huge conspiracy and what's going on. Yeah.
and then you sort of you spawn this giant, like it's implied that thousands of people are sort of outside this building, like kind of like mobbing it and protesting it and sort of demanding that the core leave. and it's all sort of a distraction so that your team can break in and sort of like put an end to this. And so you basically go up this building and you end up, and this is like kind of one of the things too where it's like, even just one of the things, it's like there was this Sergeant Branagh character, and there's like the Raven Squad, and there's these 3 like elite soldiers in the Corps. And you only learn about the one towards the very end, and then yeah, anyways, but it's like Sergeant Branagh and Sergeant Coyle. And as a service member, I'm just, as somebody like, there are some like, this is a person who does not understand how rank works. Um like sergeants are enlisted, and Sergeant Coyle is supposed, like, they are not commissioned officers. So Sergeant Coyle is the father general's. Now maybe this person just has their own sort of like ranking structure, but I think it's like one of those things where I'm just gonna like pull these ranks and I'm just gonna use these kind of willy-nilly. But a sergeant, like just a sergeant in the United States Army, would not be the right hand man to a general. Um, yeah, I'm just throwing that out. That would be like, and so it's like there's a character you meet very early on in the game, Lieutenant Gareth, and that would actually be a sergeant,
Yeah.
like a team leader, like overseeing 10, 15, maybe 20 people. Like that would be a sergeant. Okay. Like a lieutenant would actually be someone who's sort of like lower, that's actually, those are commissioned officers, but that would be like lower admin.
Okay.
And then like captain's major. So like if you're the right hand of the general, like the father general, like there this figure, Father General Eugene, it's just terrible, terrible.
Don't disgrace
Anyways,
his name, Father Eugene Wisner.
Father
yeah.
Eugene, Father General Eugene Wisner. Anyways, but that was just like a weird nitpick where I'm like, a sergeant would, like, unless like this is just using a completely different sort of structure.
Yeah.
Sergeants would be like the team leaders. Lieutenants would be, again, sort of like 2 or 3 sergeants would sit under a lieutenant probably, or answer to a lieutenant. And that's even like the lieutenant actually sits underneath a captain or a company commander. And then you would have like general is like like there are handfuls of generals, but like that's like tippy top. And so like all I'm saying is that the Raven Squad, these 3, like they would probably like the equivalent would be like major or colonel. Like, but again, it's just this sort of like, this is just me being nitpicky and sort of like, like I actually know how rank works. And
Okay.
yeah.
You say it's being nitpicky, but I think it's actually indicative of the game in general. So I've said that this feels like a very indie game. It feels kind of low budget, and there are things that we didn't get into, bugs that you might find throughout the game. I noticed
Oh
a
yeah,
number
I
of
do
different
need to
things.
I will talk about a bug that I experienced towards the end of the game too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going in and out of menus, sometimes descriptions don't pop up. That happened to me a lot, and so I had to kind of like reload a menu in order to take a look at item descriptions. Okay, there's things like that just throughout the game. You can tell that this was the creator's first foray into video games in general. But okay, so you're saying that that's a nitpick, but I'm going to take this as I think it's indicative of the game as a whole, in that the developer is trying to critique war, but has not studied the intricacies of what it means to be in war, of these different rankings within a military unit, and why
Now, to
you
be
have
fair,
these rankings. What's that?
I'm just using like I'm speaking from like each even within, so each army has its own like
Mhm.
systems, but we all use sort of common terms.
Yeah.
Like, like any English speaking army is going to have like privates,
Mhm.
corporals, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, majors, etc. Like, but those all sort of translate differently. Even within the United States Armed Forces, like those ranks aren't quite exactly the same. Like the Army, actually, for most non-combat units, we don't really use corporal anymore. That's actually
Okay.
usually tends to be specialist. A corporal is actually a junior NCO, whereas a specialist is not. Anyways, it's just there's a whole but that's Army. But like the Marine
Okay.
Corps, corporal is a leadership position. It's like the bottom,
Gotcha.
like from what I understand, it's like the bottom level of like that sort of enlisted leadership. But even the way their sergeant sort of systems work is different than sergeants in the Army. So
Okay.
I just kind of want to throw that out there and just say like, hey, like it's not a universal standard, but it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like that. It's implied that these are sort of American based.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if this was like, if Father General Eugene had any sort of prior armed service, and again, it just, so yeah, it's just sort of like, this is somebody's first attempt, but yeah, it's sort of, yeah, this, I'm going to critique war, but I'm not going to actually like do any serious research into how an organization like this might work.
Right, right. And if you really want to, I'm saying this from a perspective of how can we do this better? How can like a critique in the form of, so next time let's make something a bit more complex. If you really want to wrestle with war, then dig in a bit more, understand like why do we even have militaries? What are they for?
How do they work?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, or at least I saw this in a number of different ways. We've touched on it also by saying even the core is kind of a mustache twirling villain for the sake of it. Like if you really want to, it would be much more interesting. The way that this game plays out is the core really just wants power. That's all that it is. Well, what if Poland was actually unstable and people were dying because of some, I don't know, looting in the streets, rioting that their police couldn't take care of, but they didn't want to join this core group, and the core came in and were like, hey, we can stabilize your living situation, and you have different factions within Poland who want to be, so that the core as the bad guys you could actually see how, oh no, they're actually trying to bring stability. Like you could
There
see,
might be a moral justification for them to actually be there.
right. And you could see that, oh, how does that play out in Russia, and how does that play out in Germany throughout this game? Like you could tell a more interesting story if the core was a more compelling villain that actually believed that what they were doing was right, as opposed to kidnapping women and using them only as baby producers so that you could train up soldiers so that you could gain power in these European countries. Like it ends up being, like you said, just the
Well,
mustache twirling
let's
villain.
kind of land the plane on just the story, and then we can sort of
Mhm.
like get a little bit more into this, because I
Cool.
think that's actually really good. So the way this is, you break into this building, you climb the building, and actually, I have to give props to them. I thought like the dungeons or the encounters were all fairly interesting. They weren't super complex. It wasn't like, oh, this is breaking my brain, but I was like, hey, this is actually like not terrible level design. This is kind of good. Like
Mhm.
it's not blowing my mind, it's not breaking my brain, but it's pretty coherent and fairly enjoyable, like working my way through the different buildings.
Mhm.
So I do want to give them like, I was like, I feel like that was actually pretty good. It wasn't actively bad at the very least. There was a lack
Huh.
again, sort of a lack of communication on some like critical path stuff where it's like, what? Like, how am I supposed to like figure this out?
Okay.
But you end up scaling this building. You come into conflict with Sergeant Coyle, and the only reason I mention this is because this is like one of those games, like areas where the game sort of drops the ball. But we've mentioned the two endings thing, and so when you get to this fight, in order to get the good ending, you have to persuade Sergeant Coyle to side with you, to sort of like voluntarily lay down his arms and join your cause, kind of, so to speak. Right? Like you have to basically force him to be like, no, like what I've been doing is wrong. And but there's no clear indication in that fight. Like there's this sort of like a dialogue choice thing that happens, and basically if you pick the wrong like thing to say to him, which actually seems counterintuitive, because like we've talked about it, like the one is sort of like the one answer, it sort of almost comes back to this like very transactional sort of thing, relationship thing, where the other one is like, no, like this is the better thing here. Anyways, well, and we're in spoilers, so it's like the one answer is like they gave me a reason to live, and to me I was like, no, that's a stupid thing. And that's like, that's no, that's not, the core gave you a reason to live too, but it's just like somehow you magically decided that the reason that the core gave you to live isn't as good as like these other people's reasoning.
Yeah,
Whereas,
I took issue with that in particular because Coyle would not have, like, as someone who has been raised up and is the right-hand man of the main guy in the core, saying, oh, these guys gave me a reason to live, would roll off your back
dude,
immediately. Like, well,
but the
yeah,
answer
Eugene
that
gave me a reason to live. Yeah.
the answer that you give, that I gave him and that you guys gave him, was like, it's not transactional. They don't need to do anything for me. Like, they're my friends. They care about me,
Mhm.
you know? And to me, I'm like, that is actually the better answer here,
Right.
to like say like, hey, dude, it's not about like what they can do for you or what they can use. Like it is more than that. And to like, anyways, so that's the one of the big things. Anyway, so you end up defeating him, and depending on again your answer, and sort of, you do have to get your morale up, which is again, it's one of those, like, you have to keep your morale up to a certain point. Um the game does not, like, it introduces a system, and then Josh, gracious Josh, you and I talked about it. It doesn't do anything with it. It just sort of like, they're like, hey, it's supposed to affect combat. It doesn't really. Hey, it's supposed to do this thing. And it's like, but there's no clear indicator as to where like you're sitting on that scale or whatever.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
yeah. And it's like, and again, just a little a better quantification of some of that stuff, or like letting, like, just communicate some of that to me a little bit better. But you end up fighting Father General Eugene, and it's, I mean, it's a pretty standard fare boss fight. He has multiple phases,
Mhm.
um, and if you defeat him, the bad ending, if you don't turn Coil,
Actually, can I just
yeah,
insert real quickly? It is a multi-phase battle with Eugene. I did appreciate. I think this is kind of the cohesiveness of, after you beat him in his turret machine twice, he gets out of that and he's actually pretty weak.
oh,
Like,
dude,
I
yeah, like,
liked that final form where he was actually weaker than the other two. That, it just goes to show, like, he's not the greatest soldier. He's just the commander. So okay. So, anyways, now endings.
um, yeah, if you don't turn Coil, what happens is nothing really changes. Um, Father Eugene dies. All of the Corps' existing allies sort of deny all of the allegations and the information, like all of the, because like that's part of it. Like you find all this information, you put it out there, and you're like, look, world, the Corps is evil, but somebody else just kind of like steps into Father Eugene's place, and the Corps keeps going on, and they keep doing their thing, and nothing changes. And so like at that point in time, your 6 characters are now, they're kind of like on the run. They can't go home. Well, I mean, Rourke and Adair never really had a home, and
Mhm.
Ivan and Lynn's home got bombed out. So, a TA and Pascal can't go home to Germany because, of reasons. Um, and war progresses, and the world just kind of turns into a dung heap, an ash heap, right?
Mhm.
But if you put Coil, like if you turn him, like the good ending is he kind of steps in, and, well, since the Corps no longer has a leader who seeks to like sort of take over the world and do all this other crap and exploit people and be heinous, it sort of dissolves, goes away, and all of a sudden, like the truth is given the opportunity to shine. And of course, like, all the information that you've discovered now, it's like it pours out and everybody's like, oh no, they were evil all along. And it's like,
Yeah.
so that's it. And yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where, yeah, even that bit of the writing, but and what kind of irritated me is that there's, again, no clear communication, like that, like, hey, this is your optimal dialogue choice,
Mhm.
or anyways, just all of that really kind of irked me. I also was telling you guys, I ran into a bug at one point in time. Like I was playing this and I got really close to the end, and I got into a bug where I went to step through a door and the game froze up. And then when I went, so I hard quit the game on my PlayStation, and when I went to go back in, that save file won't load. So I lost a couple hours, and I was like, I'm just gonna. And I spent last night sort of getting caught back up. Well, at this point in time, 2 nights ago, I spent 2 nights ago getting caught back up, trying to get to where I was, because I knew I was like towards the end of the game. And when I went to load that file wouldn't load. And so I had to today like run like the last 2.5 hours, like just in one
Man.
straight shot all the way through. And that time too, like, and that meant like I skipped a lot of the, like, because I did all the side quests except
Mhm.
for like one. There was one side quest in Germany that I hadn't done.
Okay.
But I did all the side quests, like I did all of that stuff the previous playthroughs, but this time I was like, no, like I was like, I'm ready to be done. Like, I was like, I messed up a puzzle at one point in time, and like the puzzles aren't super hard, but it's like I was like, I don't care, like just keep going. Like it was like, I don't need this, just keep going. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a game that I think is like kind of like interesting ish. Um, I didn't hate it. I actually thought there were like some really like clever conceits. Like, again, like sort of putting a turn-based JRPG, sort of using that form, and then throwing this sort of, again, this like near future dystopia on top of that. I actually thought I really liked that. I was like, this is interesting. You don't see a lot of that. Is it reductive? Yeah, because it's like, if the whole point is sort of be anti-war, anti-violence, it's like, but your answer to every dilemma is basically like take turns shooting at each other. It, like there's a pretty significant disconnect. Um, there's some ludo narrative dissonance there.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's the story. I mean, like I said, I didn't hate it. I definitely, like, I actually kind of liked it. It just like it just got a little, I don't know, preachy, heavy-handed. And again,
Mhm.
that I think that comes from like, this is the person's first game.
Right.
Like this, it's like, Josh, one of the things you said when other Josh was like, "Hey, I was listening to a podcast." When Gracious Josh said, "I was listening to a podcast," and it says like she's had this idea since she was like 15 years old, and she got into all this, like she learned how to make games because she wanted to sort of make this thing. I was like, this feels like something a 15-year-old would write,
Mhm.
like, and it's not bad. Like it's remarkably competent. Like it was like, but it's like it has all the imagination of a 14-year-old,
Mhm.
which is not. Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
guess I.
just not as thought out as and we were talking before the podcast. One of the things that stuck out to me is you get imprisoned at one part in the game, and you fool someone who comes into the prisoner's room, and then you get freed. Okay, so you're wandering around the prison trying to get out, and the first people that you meet that pull guns out on you, you go into a battle like a standard JRPG battle, and you fight them with your guns that you've had in the prison. It was
So
jarring to me because
in theory,
typically, what's up?
well, and that's what what you were going to say there. It's like
Right.
in every other JRPG, like there's a sequence where you have to go get your gear back.
Mm-hmm. Because when you're
Yeah.
taken to prison, you're not allowed to have your guns with you in your cell. So it's things like that it just felt like it wasn't as fleshed out as it could have been. Like it wasn't thought through as well as it could have been. Now, that, due to first game and small development team size, like I get it. But it does characterize a lot of the game. You talked about the different endings. We all got the bad ending, and I will say it left kind of a sour taste in my mouth because the bad ending is so bad. Like it's just very bleak. It feels like it kind of goes against what the rest of the game was. Like, okay, yeah, you just keep fighting and the world doesn't get any better. Thanks for playing. Like, oh man, like really? It's one of those endings that I've played games that have endings like that, and it kind of pushes you to like go get the good ending because this wasn't the real ending because it's not satisfying. But in this case, I mean, that is the case because there is a good ending and it's much better. But the game doesn't kind of push you in that, like, let on what that or how to actually go about doing that. Now, I said that, Nate, you said there was a line of dialogue where it does actually kind of refer you to it. I missed it. Anyways, there is, as I was watching the good ending on YouTube because I wanted to see what it was. Do you guys remember the song that plays at the end of the game?
No.
The reason I ask is because this song doesn't play through the rest of the game. Do you remember, Josh? Okay. So, throughout this game, it's very like guitar based music. I liked it quite a bit. It's kind of like open ended, kind of airy. It gives kind of a dystopian tone to it, and kind of a sense of contemplativeness throughout the game. I like the music overall. A little bit overused. Could have used some more tracks in certain areas, but overall, I liked it quite a bit. So at the very end of the game, when you get the good ending, there is a track that plays nowhere else throughout the game, and it is another guitar-based track, and it starts out for probably 30 seconds where it's just guitar, and I liked it. It's good music. He continues to play in kind of like layers some guitar lines, and I notice that some of the notes are kind of pinched, if you know what that means. It's not played as cleanly as a lot of professional music, I'll put it that way. And then some vocals come in, and so they're singing over this guitar, and the singing strikes me as someone who has not professionally recorded. There are some cool things they do with some vocal doubling and harmony things, but he's not the best singer, and he goes for this like overly emotional tone that doesn't always sound great. And it struck me as I was listening to it that it kind of encapsulated the game for me, in that there was a lot to like. There was a lot that I enjoyed about it, and it was very earnest in what it was doing, but it was also flawed. And it's like, it had some rough edges. It had some things that weren't thought through, things that could have been polished if it wanted to be better. And I thought that final track on the good ending encapsulated that for me also. So if you go back and watch one of those videos and listen to that track, see if you get some of the similar feeling that I did with that one. Because I liked it, but it's also like it's a
It's a
little
little
try
rough.
hard. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, we've been kind of yammering on here, gracious Josh, but what is there anything that we didn't say that you feel needs to be said, or anything that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I guess one last thought is just, I mean, I agree with you guys in terms of I think it's an earnest first, production of a game. I'm assuming it's their first, and I think it has flaws for sure. Um, I don't think because it's so short, I don't know if I cared as much about the characters as I
Yeah.
might have in a longer game, and even to develop some of the bad characters and some of the nuance in terms
Hmm.
of why they were doing what they're doing, or just more depth to the settings. I mean, they bounced around between Russia, Poland, and Germany, and then back to Poland. I mean, you're kind of it's a lot of places to go. So,
mhm.
but I guess from like a worldview perspective, um, there's something about it in terms of that it's trying to get at that I found okay. There's something there. I think it could be fleshed out more. But the idea that war dehumanizes us, and it
Hmm.
Mm.
causes us to see each other as just obstacles in the path of my power.
Yeah.
And we see this happening in our world today. And this game is trying to press against that now always effectively, and is trying to say that we need to see each other as human beings.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
we're called to love one another, we're called to support one another, be there for each other, defend each other. And there's something about that as a Christian that I say that's right. I think
Yeah.
about the passages in the Bible that says that one day there's going to come a time when the nations are going to beat their swords into plowshares,
Hmm.
right? And the nations are going to gather around the Lord, and He's going to be their king, right? And we long for that day. Even
Hmm.
non-believers who make these kinds of games, they long for that day. Their
Hmm.
answers to it and how they get there, I don't know. But
Yeah.
as a Christian, I'm thinking, yeah, I long for that day too. When I think
Yeah.
about what's
Yeah.
happening in parts of our world right now, I think, man, Lord Jesus, come. Let there be
Yeah.
peace,
Yeah.
right? And I think this game is trying to get at that. It's trying to say something about war, about the effects of war, about the importance of peace and belonging and love. And I think it's good. I don't think it's sufficient. It's not as nuanced as it could be, but there's something there that it could be fleshed out more. So,
No, I do think, and I think
Yeah.
that that's one. I just appreciate that perspective too, because it kind of takes me back to the end of the game where Rourke and Father Eugene sort of have this conversation, especially in the bad ending, where like, yeah, what was kind of funny too is like because like Rourke has this very like impassioned speech, right, about like you know change isn't going to happen through just like force and like power, and it's like that's not going to bring change comes through like compromise, and yeah, it's this very like sort of like
mhm,
this is we're going to achieve it by you know sort of, and it's like, well, no, because like good cannot compromise with evil.
right,
Like so it's very heartfelt, also very earnest, also very wrong.
right,
but it's like one of those things where you said it's like this is probably a non-believer sort of trying to say like, hey, if we could just all come to the table
hmm
and talk things out and sort of reach a compromise, this is the path forward.
hmm
And I like that. I actually like that because I think, yeah, in non-essential issues like compromise is the way forward.
hmm
It's part of the problem that we're facing sociologically today, like like in our socio-political climate, is an absolute inability to talk across the aisle. There is no compromise.
right.
Everything becomes a high stakes issue, and because everything is a high stakes issue, like no progress, no meaningful progress can be made forward.
It reminds me.
Like we
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
It reminds me of this concept that I heard, and I don't espouse this theologian's concepts all entirely, but I heard something from him
Hmm?
that was helpful. His name is Miroslav Volf, and he talks about this idea of the other. And it's really easy.
Hmm.
We see this happening in our culture. Nate, you're getting at this idea that it's easy. The person across the aisle, we turn them into the other. We dehumanize them. We characterize them. and then it's easy to destroy them with our words or our attitudes or even our
Mhm.
fists or our guns. But if we actually knew them and we knew them as people, we would have a lot harder time being able to say, they're actually a lot more like me, or I'm a lot more like them than I realized, And so I think this
Mhm.
game is getting at, because at the beginning he's just shooting people. He's just shooting these people
Yeah.
he's been trained to do, and then he starts realizing, wait a minute, these are real. When he sees that kid get shot in the alley, it
Yeah.
wakes him up. His conscience, it wakes him up to realize that.
Now,
So
and granted, like again, I've sort of pointed out, like a child soldier, it is highly unlikely, especially raised in that climate, that's going to be sort of a catalytic moment,
mhm.
like that. But for the sake of the story and everything else, but yeah, I mean, I do think it's like, yeah, um, yeah, it is kind of just like, yeah, and again, I was kind of amused by this, like this heartfelt speech at the end where it's like, this is the path forward. And I think that's kind of a good word to even sort of to push back. I think like, and I want to think, I need to think about how I want to say this. Like, I think as Christians, especially American Christians, we need to advocate for just laws, and we should want righteous leadership, good leadership. But I think sometimes there is a kind of an almost like, if we're in charge, we're gonna fix everything. And that the fact is, like, and maybe I'm just being a bit of a cynic here when I say this, but it's like absolute power corrupts absolutely. And even when you look at history, like in the times where the church has been more ascendant, where the church is like, what happens is wicked men they seek seats of power and they corrupt those institutions, and it's like the fact is, like, we're sinners, so we know, like, we're like any given moment, like we could do that, like
Mhm.
in some ways, like, I think about even the fact sometimes, like David, and I bring this up, a man after God's own heart. He's hanging out on a rooftop, not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And this is a man that, like, God says this about him, says, like, this man loves me. He loves my law. He wants to please me. Right.
Mhm.
And David sleeps with another man's wife and then murders that dude, or, conspires to have that dude murdered to cover up his wickedness. Right. And so, like, I think in a way, it's like that phrase there, but for the grace of God go I. We need to, like, cling to that. But the answer I think that we have to, like, this situation is not like, it is, remember that person is Imago Dei. Like, and this is even in my most recent bite size, or the bite size I recorded
Mhm.
not too long ago. This is kind of what I was getting at, is like, I think especially for believers, like, now part of what I was like, hey, stop looking at all the ugly, stop fixating on the ugly. I don't think that's doing anything good for us. But I think when it comes to, like, talking to people across the aisle, like, we have to remember they are Imago Dei. And even if they are fallen, even if they are just deep in an unrepentant posture, like, the grace of God is greater than that and can overcome that. And I think that, like, it is imperative that we be better. And so, like, even like, you know what I'm saying? I think, like, that's like, yeah, obviously, like, Lord, come quickly. Like, like, I look at the state of the world, I look at the state of America, I look at the state, my mental state, and I'm just like, Lord, come quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, yeah, and it is kind of like, I think it's one of those, it's an interesting sort of like counterpoint, and not counterpoint, but like additional sort of like touch point, maybe. Or say, yeah, like, in some ways, this is kind of like a dumbed down version of a secularized argument for, like, how can we achieve world peace and change? And they're like, this. And we're like, no, like, you know how it's going to happen is when mighty King Jesus comes back, and he you know he puts his foot all the way down on the serpent's neck.
Right.
um
I mean, you look at Father General Eugene Wisner. That name is the winner.
it's
Um,
terrible, it's horrible.
but you
It's
look at
like,
him,
it's
and you look at him as a caricature of, like, the guy with the twirling mustache. I get it, but like how King Jesus is everything that he's not, right?
Yeah.
Someone who serves his people, who dies for his people, who's bringing peace and justice and to the nations. So yeah, there's you just see that in this game there's a longing for something, but both the mechanics of the game, the narrative of the game, they can't satisfy the longing that this game is shooting at. So
Yeah.
but it's there.
Don't
good, man.
please tell me that was not the game is shooting at. I'm just like,
Oh, I didn't say
I'm just hoping that was you being tired and not you trying to insert terrible wordplay.
that was it. It's been a long day, man. Long gone day here.
Yes.
No.
Yes, the day is long gone because it's the middle of the night right
It hurts.
now.
It hurts.
Awesome.
Well, it is
yeah, this
late.
It is late. This has been a great conversation. We're gonna just run down really quickly, like we do with these kinds of episodes. The too long didn't listen. Just wrapping up this conversation here. We talked about who made the game. We talked about what the game is already. We already did that. So
let's just recap that real quick, because like part of the hope for these till deals is that what we'll do is we'll pull these out and we'll make shorts out of these at some point in
That's
time.
right.
So who made it? Serenity Forge published it. It was actually but oh dang it, I pulled up this stupid webpage. I pulled up the Wikipedia.
This I dreamt.
This I dreamt. Yeah, was also helped in that. But the designer is Pablo Videla, and the writers are Pablo Videla and Camila Gormaz. And Camilla, again, she's the one that this was apparently based on a story idea that she had at one point in time. So the next question, what is it? It is a turn-based RPG sort of set. And again, I would use the term set in a near future sort of dystopian kind of geopolitical landscape. Okay, so do you guys have anything to add to that? Anything to sort of
just that it's short. It's only about 10 hours, so that plays into as a game, kind of its uniqueness there.
Yeah. So let's ask a few more questions here. Who should play it? Any?
I mean, if you enjoy RPG games, but you don't want to spend 100 hours playing a game, this might be
That's true.
Nice little filler.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those games that like, and we'll sort of get to this here in a minute, but like I'm like, well, if you already own it, it's worth a run through. Like it doesn't the time sort of the potential time investment isn't terrible, and it does have some interesting ideas, So, what should you keep in mind while playing? I think we've kind of hit this one like over the head several times, but this is very much like my first video game kind of RPG energy, where it's like this is. One thing I do want to sort of give credit for is that I actually think the sprite work is really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The you can it showcases the emotions of the characters very well. So
yeah, and
I
it's
agree.
really consistent, and I actually think it's a pretty good look. Like it's just like I was that was one thing where I was like, oh, this sprite work is really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep in mind if you're going to play it that this is sort of it's very much like sort of and it has that very like this is very much a freshman project kind of thing.
Yeah.
Why does it matter? I'm going to say this, and maybe this is just me being mean. I don't think it does.
I'd say what you were just talking about, Josh, is why it matters. I do think it's a reminder that we have a tendency to dehumanize those we disagree with, And at least insofar as this game touches on that, it's a reminder that of the humanity of other humans.
But I'll, Josh, I'll let you weigh in here. I just want to say, like, but I'm sure that if we had time, we could think about it and we could find games that do a better job of that.
Yes. The question is, why does this game matter? And that's what I would say there.
Okay.
Are there other
That's-
games that
that's
do
fair.
it better? Yes, far and away. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, go play it. But okay, I'm done. I'll stop mentioning that game.
Should it be on the top 100? I'm gonna say no.
No, it's not a top 100 game for me. I enjoyed playing through it, and for like the reason that you said earlier, Josh, that it is a shorter burn, so it didn't feel like a slog or anything like that. So I enjoyed my time with it, but no, I'll never replay it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Josh.
I agree. I don't think
okay.
it should be in the top 100. So it's not in my top 100. I don't have one, but it wouldn't be on it anyway. So
Yeah. To answer the question, where can you find this? It is available. There's a Linux, Windows, on Switch, OS X, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. So pretty much wherever you can play video games.
Yeah.
Last sort of bit to ask there with the Tildill, is this a pass or a play? I'll just go ahead and I think this is pretty much you could probably pretty safely pass on this. I don't think it's playable and it's not bad, but it's just as a general rule, I think like this one's a pretty safe pass.
Yeah, I would say the same. Would I play it again now that I know about it? No. But am I glad I played it? Sure. Yeah, it was fun to talk about it with you guys. But no, I wouldn't play it again. So
yeah, I think in any other context, it might not be as enjoyable. But knowing that we kind of were going to be sitting down here and sort of chopping it up and chewing it up, I was like that. So, but yeah, I would say outside of that, it's probably not worth playing. Joshy B.
So I agree. It is passable. With the caveat being, like you said earlier, Nate, if you own it and you're looking for a short RPG to play through, then go for it. I would not encourage anyone to buy it to play it. So yeah, by that metric, it's a pass for me too.
It's like one of those games. It kind of sits right in the middle. It's playable. You're not gonna hate it, I don't think, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of pretty passable as well.
It's not going to blow you away, right?
Yeah.
Hey, like a point blank.
Point blank gun would.
That's terrible.
Oh, that's good. That's good. No, it makes me think of, you said this was a freshman outing. It does feel like a short film, like a college student short film kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Where, you can tell there was passion put into it, but also acting's not great and cinematography's not great. And it's you'd be fine if you didn't watch it, but.
Well, and it's like you were talking about like the closing song where it's like, it's good. And you can tell that like people are trying really hard, but it's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it is one of those things where there's a lot of like kind of interesting ideas, but there's just like they aren't executed really very well. So, anyways, that being said, like let's kind of just like keep ticking along here and get into the final forms. So it is time to offer any shout outs. And gracious Josh, since you're our guest, do you have anything or anybody that you'd like to give a bit of a shout out to?
Yeah, no, I thought about this and I wanted to actually shout out both of you. And
shucks.
you're not paying me to say this. You can if you want to. But
I think you're paying us to say that.
That's true. No, but real quick. I remember a couple years ago, I was just in a place with gaming and whatnot where I was like, man, I enjoy gaming, but I don't feel connected to anybody. Being able to talk about the things that I enjoy. And then I got involved more in the Discord community and just also listened to the podcast, and just so grateful for listening to you guys and being a part of the community for years now. It's been really helpful for me. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I know it's a lot of work. These are long episodes, and yeah, it's good stuff. So I'm thankful for you.
Oh, thanks, man.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, that means a lot.
No.
And
Yeah.
and we're glad to have you. Like yeah, we're glad to have you as a patron, and it, dude, like it's always kind of fun to have you on. Yeah. Like at some point in time, we're gonna have to hold Broccolo down and make him like reconsider his position on Death Stranding.
Yes.
Maybe
on.
after I play the second one, I'll just totally change my mind.
You'll just be like, I get it now. Why
And
was
then
I such an idiot?
I'll think back on those long gone days when I really didn't like couldn't stand it and thought it didn't make any sense.
All right. Well, okay. And I'm just like, when Gracious Josh is on here, you were just going to be Joshy B.
I do not like that at all.
Well,
that's weird.
Fortunately for you, he's not on that often.
Sounds like a saxophone player. So
okay. 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 Yeah. I'm not even gonna say what I'm thinking because I don't want it to come back and bite me. So actually, what I had written down here for the shout out was to shout you out, Josh, just for being a patron, being a part of the community, and again for picking a game like this that's just different than what we've done in the past. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you coming on here. Really appreciate you losing some sleep over this. Hopefully that not too much sleep, and we can get you going out of here soon. So shout out to you, good sir.
Yeah, I would echo that. Yeah, thanks for thanks for being a patron. Thanks for just making the recommendation and hopping on and hanging out for a while. I'm gonna just sort of echo, but as like my official shout out, I'm gonna shout out like all the dads listening. Like
it's a good one.
We have a lot of dads in our community, in the Discord who, and like just like I think like the camaraderie and the brotherhood there and like the encouragement. I had a gamer dad moment tonight. Like Byron is of an age where he wants the actual controller. He cannot do anything with that controller.
Nice.
And he gets frustrated because like he cannot make the characters move, but he is like, oh no, I know that you're giving me the dummy. Like, I don't want the dummy controller. I want the real one. And that was kind of fun, but it just like, I think the encouragement there and sort of like all sort of like trying to, in a certain way, sort of like lock arms and encourage each other to be, to game wisely, but also to just love our families well. Like, and I think like that's been pretty, especially in the last couple of years, I've really come to cherish that. How it's like there's this kind of like, yeah. So yeah, to all the dads and to all the hopeful dads, and even if you aren't a dad, like to all the good dudes in the breakdown, but especially the dads.
Nice. Awesome. Well, now that our shout outs are done, I think that's the end of. Oh, wait, who is that?
Here comes a new challenger.
Oh, that's right. It's a new challenger because it's the first episode of the month. Yes,
but
sorry.
You know what though? The thing is, like, it's not really like new challenges. Like that's I like this stinger, but it's like it's really us talking about old challengers.
We do talk about old challengers, and then we put up the new one. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I mean, if you just want to shoot down all of the music that we use throughout the episode,
no, I'm not shooting it down. I'm just like I'm tired. I'm tired and being hypercritical. I'm just like, I like it. I think that stinger was actually like kind of like my idea, but it's also like new challenger. You know, it's like, but okay, yeah. But it just maybe I'm just mocking myself because it's like I just keep bringing like the same things. So spoilers, I'm just going to bring the same things. But I'll talk
Gotcha.
about them.
Okay.
But hey, gracious Josh, like, do you have any challenges you want to sort of throw out to the community while you're here?
I guess the one challenge that I got to share a testimony at the Bible study boot camp this past week. That's on Saturday. And one of the things I shared about was just the priority. Speaking of dads, the priority that family worship is for us, and we don't do it perfectly, but it's something that we aim to do every night with the boys. And it's easy to let that slide. It's easy to we're tired, we're busy, we're out late. But to gather around the Word on a regular basis with your kids and to just talk to them about it and pray together and sing together it has been a good thing. So it's not a challenge as much as a privilege, to keep doing that. But I mean, it gets to be a challenge when you get tired and you got a lot of stuff going on. So,
Yeah.
but I've been reminded of that, and this week I've been trying to press forward because I just talked about it, and so I was like, I need to set an example, keep doing what I said I was going to do. So
Yeah.
No, that's a
great.
good one. And like, hey, that I think that's a good word to just encourage guys and just say, hey, like, if you're not doing it, do it. And if you are doing it, press on. Like,
right,
keep it up.
yep.
I like that. I like that. All right, Joshy B,
That's awesome.
what's your challenges?
Okay, so last time I challenged myself to read 3 books before the end of the month. I've read 2 physical books. I've listened to a number of others, at least 2 others that I've listened through, but I've only read 2. So I did not quite meet that challenge. But I do have another book on hold, finished Till We Have Faces just a couple days ago. And I've got some Ray Bradbury stories because I'm just on a fiction kick here lately. So I'll continue that one. My new challenge going forward is to put into practice some of the things that I learned at that breakout that I talked about earlier with Brett McCracken, and to stop using my phone as much and to have designated things to do with my phone and not use it for things outside of that. So stopping the scroll. So basically just limiting my phone usage, and I've got some ideas on how to do that. But I will talk to you more next month and see how I am at that point. So that's what I'm challenging myself to do, is to limit my phone usage. How about you?
I'm actually just typing this in because I forgot to do that earlier because I'm the worst. So I had laid out basically the sort of getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night. And then I had talked about like caloric restriction and stop eating by 7 p.m., work out 15, 20 minutes, 3 times a week. So that basic framework. What I can say that I have been doing better is, as a general rule, I am getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night, most
Nice.
nights. Not tonight, but most nights. Um,
Yep.
As far as like the eating out another or the we don't eat out that often. But anyways, I am fading fast here. So I had also had brought up like just about praying the Psalms and just sort of in kind of bouncing off of Gracious Josh's challenge that he brought up is like one of the things that we've done is we have tried within the last couple of weeks to be a lot more consistent. So in the morning, I usually get up and I have like, I'm following, it's going through the Psalms in 30 days. And I've just been kind of like keeping that on and on repeat for a while. And what I do is my morning reading when I do it is I read through that Psalm and I usually try to grab like just a verse. And I like that becomes like I build a prayer out of that. Like that one pass, like that one thought, and we build a prayer out of that. And so that's like my morning sort of reflection. And then at night, what we try to do either after supper or before Byron goes to bed, we sit down and I read the next bit, and then we just talk a little bit about it. We've also tried to work in some of the friend of the show, another patron, John McKelvey, had sent me a copy of the family worship Bible guide a while ago. And we're just like, we read a chapter of scripture sometimes, and then we just use that to sort of sit down and talk about that. Like we ask one of the questions, we have a little bit of a conversation. And Byron's only 2. So most of the time he's like wandering off and,
Sure.
but hopefully as he gets older, he'll sort of, he'll get used to that form, and we'll be able to sort of draw him in. So moving forward is, I think I really need to sort of get an exercise regimen. Well, not get one, but put it in place. I need to actually finish Strong On and like read through it, and then, so that is my moving forward.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, as we've mentioned, few of us are fading here, so we do need to be off. But this has been a really fun conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure we all
had
have,
a good time.
even if we're not quite as energized on this end of the podcast, of the conversation. It's of this long gone conversation.
This is a long gone night. Man.
Oh, I like it.
This
but
night
once
has
again,
gone on too long.
Josh, thank you so much for
Thanks, guys.
your recommendation of this game. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking with us. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, let's get this over with.
All right. Well, guys.
No, thank you, guys. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So.
For sure. And if you guys listening have any thoughts for us, you can shoot them to us anywhere on the internet. Just go to our Linktree, linktree.com/the Backlog Breakdown, and you can reach out to us, and we can talk further there.
Yeah. Well, we did the things, we had the conversation, we are exhausted. And I think it is really just time to sort of call it. But until next time, Josh, what should they do?
Guys, keep beating down your backlogs, and we'll keep breaking down the benefits.